Ever wondered about historical artifacts that seem almost alive, holding secrets through the ages? Welcome to Unearthed Secrets, where we reveal the hidden stories of the world's most extraordinary relics. Before we start, subscribe, hit like, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from and the time there. Let's begin. The scroll that spoke without words. It was said to have no ink, no visible script, and no author, and yet when unrolled, those who gazed upon it swore they heard meaning. Clearer than sound, softer than silence. The scroll was found deep beneath a ruined shrine in Delphi, where time had pressed stone upon stone until the ceiling bowed under centuries of dust. The archaeologists had come expecting fragments of pottery, maybe another broken kylix, a few coins. But in a chamber sealed behind an altar, they found a cylinder of aged bronze, tarnished, yet uncorroded. Inside, wound tightly, lay a sheet of papyrus darker than any they had seen, supple as if made yesterday. No words, no letters. Only faint whirls in the fibers, like the natural grain of wood or the rippling surface of still water. When they first unrolled it, the lamps flickered. One of them swore he heard whispers, not voices, exactly, but the rhythm of voices, the shape of speech without sound. They laughed about it afterward, saying it was the wind, or nerves. But no one joked when that night. They all dreamed the same thing, a temple with columns of light, and a woman standing between them, her mouth moving soundlessly as stars spun overhead. They sealed the scroll in glass, sent it to Athens for study, and wrote reports in careful professional language, avoiding words like haunted or alive. But every person who spent more than a few hours near it began to describe strange effects. One scholar claimed he heard answers to questions he had not yet asked. Another reported seeing faint patterns when he blinked, as if invisible writing were hovering just beyond his vision. They tried every modern technique, infrared photography, ultraviolet scanning, multispectral imaging. Nothing revealed any ink or pigment. The papyrus was ancient, far older than expected, dating perhaps to the 8th century BCE. That was before the first recorded use of papyrus in Greece. It should not have existed, and yet it did. The legend began to grow even before it left the museum. Visitors said they felt it like a hum under the skin, a vibration that followed them after they turned away. A journalist wrote that the scroll was not meant to be read, but to be listened to with the bones. No one knew who had made it, but its find location, Delphi, suggested something connected to the oracle, the Pythia, who spoke in riddles from the temple of Apollo. Some wondered if this was her lost medium, if prophecies once came not from voice, but from the silence between words. For months the scroll stayed locked behind glass. Then a linguist named Thalia was granted permission to study it privately. She was young, brilliant, and not easily swayed by mysticism. Her approach was empirical, her tone dry. If it hums, she said to a colleague, then there's vibration, and vibration means frequency, and frequency can be measured. For days she observed it in silence. The lab was quiet, except for the faint ticking of the clock and the low whir of the air purifier. Nothing. Then one night, as she leaned close to examine the fibers through a microscope, her breath fogged the glass. The moment her condensation touched the surface of the scroll, something changed. The papyrus seemed to shimmer, not glowing, but absorbing light in subtle waves, as though it were breathing. Thalia stepped back. Her pulse slowed, her hearing dulled, and a low pressure filled her head. Then came a shape, inside her thoughts, not her ears. Like a sentence forming behind the mind, a phrase, but not in Greek, not in any language she knew. It was pure concept, an understanding without syntax. The silence before the storm remembers the sound. She blinked, gasped, and the feeling vanished. The air purifier still hummed, the clock still ticked. But her perception of time felt bent, stretched, as though moments were now elastic. She recorded her experience in her notes, though her hand trembled. No auditory input, she wrote, but unmistakable semantic content. She tried again days later, this time with sensors measuring electromagnetic activity, low-frequency sound, and temperature. All readings spiked slightly whenever she stared at the scroll longer than a minute. When she played back the recordings, she noticed something odd, a faint oscillation at 18 Hz, too low for conscious hearing. Yet that frequency was known to cause unease, to stir emotion, to mimic presence. Perhaps, she reasoned, the ancient maker of the scroll had discovered something modern science had only just begun to understand, the manipulation of perception through resonance. But that didn't explain the dreams. Every night after she studied it, she saw the same image, an endless amphitheater under a sky of shifting stars. In the center, a figure waited, hooded, unmoving. The same words always pulsed through her mind. Ask, and be silent. Weeks passed. She stopped eating properly, slept in her office, spent hours staring through the glass case. Her colleagues grew worried. The scroll's surface now looked different, smoother, as if some faint layer of ash had dissolved from it. Then, during one late-night session, she removed the glass barrier. Against every rule, she reached out and touched the edge of the papyrus with her fingertip. It felt cold, not papery, but mineral, almost like stone softened by heat. The moment she touched it, a wave of stillness rippled through the air. The lights dimmed. For a heartbeat there was no sound, not even her own breathing. And then clarity. Not a vision, but memory. Hers? No. It was older. The world seen from another time. Columns of white stone gleaming under sunlight, incense smoke curling in patterns, voices chanting in measured rhythm. A priestess veiled in gold stood before a basin of water. The scroll rested in her hands. Around her, others watched in reverent fear. She unrolled it, and the chanting ceased. The air grew heavy. The horizon seemed to bow inward, and in the silence the people heard answers to questions they had never spoken aloud. When Talea snapped back to herself, hours had passed. The scroll was no longer in its case. It lay open before her. Her notes were blank. Every word she had ever written about it had vanished from the pages. The ink remained on the pen, untouched. She left the lab and walked into the night. No one saw her for 2 days. When they found her, she was sitting on the steps of the old temple at Delphi, barefoot, eyes open but unfocused, whispering to herself. They said she was murmuring in ancient Greek, words that didn't form sentences, but ideas. The doctors diagnosed stress-induced breakdown, but those who listened closely swore she wasn't mad. She was reciting knowledge that shouldn't exist, mathematical ratios describing planetary orbits unknown to the Greeks, predictions about the precession of the equinoxes, accurate to modern precision. The scroll was sealed away again, this time in a private facility, but it didn't stop. Security guards reported hearing low tones when passing its chamber. The building's power flickered once every midnight, and sometimes faintly when someone walked by. They felt as though the scroll were watching them, not with eyes, but with intent. Theories multiplied. Some said it was a recording device, not of sound, but of consciousness. Others thought it a relic of a lost civilization that understood resonance, memory, and energy in ways we cannot. A few whispered that it was not man-made at all, that it had arrived when something greater brushed against the early world and left an echo behind. Years later, Talea, now recovered but forever changed, gave one last interview. She was older, calm, her gaze distant. The interviewer asked her the question everyone wanted to know. What did the scroll tell you? She smiled faintly, shaking her head. It didn't tell, she said. It reminded. Reminded of what? She hesitated. That language was never invented. It was remembered. Every word we speak is just an attempt to echo what already exists. The interviewer pressed her, but she said nothing more. After her death, her personal effects were catalogued. Among them was a single strip of papyrus, black, unmarked. The analysts confirmed it was identical in composition to the original oracle scroll, though she had never been granted access to it again. No one knows where she got it. No one can read it, but some who have handled it claim that if you hold it long enough, your heartbeat begins to slow, not frighteningly, but rhythmically, as though sinking to something far beneath the audible range. Perhaps that's what the oracle meant. That meaning was never about sound or symbol, but rhythm, the pulse of being itself, the vibration that turns silence into knowing. And so, the scroll rests still, in a climate-controlled vault beneath Athens. But the curators never stay long in its presence. They describe an uneasy calm, a quiet too perfect to be natural. Some report hearing their own names, not in sound, but as a shape in thought. And when the room is dark, and only the hum of the ventilation remains, the glass case fogs slightly, though no one has been near it. It is as if the scroll is still breathing, or waiting for another listener who understands not how to speak, but how to hear what silence has been saying all along. The statue that hid a heart. They said it had no eyes, and yet it watched, no ears, and yet it listened. And somewhere inside its gleaming chest of hammered gold, there was something that pulsed, not with magic, but with memory. The idol was found high in the Andes, where the fog moves like slow rivers between jagged cliffs and forgotten ruins. The village nearby called the mountain Huayarana, the one that breathes. On certain nights, they said, it exhaled warm air from its caves, carrying the scent of burned incense and the faint metallic hum of a chant no one could quite recall. It began when a landslide opened a crevice on the mountain's western face. A team of archaeologists arrived, expecting pottery or bones. What they found instead was a single chamber cut directly into the rock, its walls smooth as glass. At its center stood a statue, just under a meter tall, cast entirely of gold, shaped like a man standing upright with his arms crossed over his chest. The face was expressionless, the surface gleaming even in the dim light of their lamps. At first glance it seemed simple, but the closer they looked, the more unnatural it felt. The statue wasn't solid. When they tapped its chest, the sound echoed faintly, as though the gold was hollow. Inside, something shifted, softly, like sand or liquid. They assumed it was a reliquary, perhaps containing ashes or offerings. They transported it to their base camp with care. But that night, the air grew strange, charged, restless. Their equipment malfunctioned. Batteries drained within minutes. One researcher woke up claiming she'd heard steady, rhythmic thumps beneath the floor like a heartbeat. The next morning she insisted she hadn't dreamed it. The others laughed, though uneasily. When they examined the statue under sunlight, one of them noticed a fine seam running down its chest, so perfect it was nearly invisible. It wasn't a flaw, it was a join. The lead archaeologist, Dr. Ramos, proposed they X-ray it before attempting any incision. But as they prepared the machine, the idol's surface began to dull, as though reacting to the air. Tiny droplets of moisture condensed upon it, even though the environment was dry. Then faintly the metal began to hum. It wasn't mechanical. It was low and uneven, almost like breathing. They froze. The hum rose and fell rhythmically, synced perfectly with the second hand on Ramos's watch. He took a step back. The sound grew fainter, then stopped altogether, leaving the tent in a silence so deep it felt alive. When they finally scanned it, the results shocked them. Inside the statue was a cavity roughly the size of a human heart, and within that cavity something dense, something irregularly shaped, something that seemed to pulse faintly during the imaging sequence, as if responding to the electromagnetic field. The team debated for hours. Some wanted to open it immediately, others warned against tampering. It was ancient, older than the Inca, possibly predating known Andean civilizations. The craftsmanship was beyond anything they had seen. Who would have the knowledge to cast a hollow gold statue with moving parts sealed inside, and why? That night, the wind outside changed direction, blowing down from the peaks. With it came the scent of wet earth and the sound of distant drums. The villagers below refused to come near, muttering about the one that holds breath. According to local lore, there had once been a god trapped inside the mountain, a deity whose heart was taken to keep the world from ending. They said the heart still beat somewhere in stone and gold. The archaeologist didn't believe it until the statue began to warm. It was gradual at first, barely noticeable, but within an hour the gold felt alive under their fingers, radiating gentle heat like a living body. The instruments recorded a faint oscillation, a steady rhythm of warmth and coolness. Someone joked nervously that it was taking a pulse. The humor didn't last. When they placed a stethoscope against the chest, they heard it clearly. Thump, 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 slow, deliberate, alive. They stared, each unwilling to speak. One of them whispered that maybe it was some ancient mechanism, perhaps a trapped bubble of expanding air, or thermal movement in the metal. Anything but what it seemed. Ramos wrote detailed notes that night, but he couldn't sleep. Every few minutes he felt the vibration through the tent floor. It wasn't sound, it was resonance, like a drum played from beneath the earth. At dawn he found a faint handprint on the statue's chest, not pressed from outside, but embossed from within. The gold bulged slightly outward, as though something inside had pushed gently against it. They decided to open it. Under controlled light, they made a fine incision along the seam. The sound was strange, a whisper, almost a sigh. Inside they found not a mechanism, nor ash, nor jewels. They found a heart, not human, not animal, something else. A mass of dark, glassy material that glistened faintly as if wet. When touched, it contracted once, weakly, then stilled. The room fell silent. Microscopic analysis later revealed no organic tissue. It was mineral, crystalline, and impossibly pure, formed under temperatures that gold itself couldn't withstand. Yet somehow, it had been sealed within during the casting. When they cut a tiny sample, it gave off no reflection in certain light angles, as though it absorbed what touched it. Its chemical makeup was unknown. Neither quartz nor obsidian, nor anything catalogued in geology. That night, the base camp was struck by a storm. Lightning crawled across the peaks in serpentine flashes. The idol's chest began to glow faintly from within, pulsing in sync with each thunderclap. Ramos recorded the readings. The electromagnetic field in the tent had spiked off the scale. The golden idol began to hum again, this time louder, so loud the tent poles rattled. And amid the noise, he thought he heard it, a voice, not words, but intent, a whisper that filled the air without sound. You have unbound the breath. The lights went out. When they returned at dawn, the idol was cold again. The heart inside had vanished. Only a small cavity remained, lined with a soot-like residue. They searched everywhere, no trace, but the local villagers said something else had happened that night. Far above, where the mountain touched the storm, they saw a single beam of light rise skyward, fading into the clouds. The thunder ceased instantly after. When the team returned to the university, the reports became confused. Instruments malfunctioned, data was lost. The statue arrived intact, but every attempt to analyze it ended strangely. Cameras malfunctioned. Microphones recorded faint rhythmic noises. One technician collapsed, claiming to feel her chest moving out of time. The idol was locked away in the museum vault. But over the months that followed, rumors spread about visitors fainting, hearing drumming in their ears, feeling their heartbeat sync with something invisible. Ramos resigned quietly. He moved to a small coastal town, stopped publishing, and never again spoke of the expedition. But in his final letter, discovered after his death, he wrote something no one could explain. "The idol was not made to hold a heart," he wrote. "It was made to protect us from one. It hid something alive, something that remembered what it was to move the sky. And though the idol still stands locked behind reinforced glass, the staff who clean the vault once a month claim that if you press your hand to the glass long enough, you'll feel it. A faint vibration, steady as a heartbeat, deep beneath the gold, not loud enough to hear, just enough to remind that not every god stayed dead. Some simply learned to hide their hearts where no one would dare to look." The bowl that held thunder. Nestled deep within the high valleys of the Himalayas, far from the paths known to ordinary travelers, there existed a village that seemed almost untouched by time. Its roofs were thatched with reeds, its walls of stone and clay, blending seamlessly with the mountainside, and the air carried a chill that cut softly through the morning light. Villagers spoke in hushed tones of a relic older than memory itself, a ceremonial bowl said to have been forged in the age when the mountains themselves roared with the birth of rivers. This was no ordinary vessel. They called it the bowl that held thunder, a creation that seemed to breathe the sky itself, capturing storms in its silent, polished curves. No one knew who had first created it, though the elders whispered that it had been offered to the gods by shamans who could summon lightning with a gesture, who could call forth rain by speaking to the clouds. The bowl was made of a dark stone, smooth and heavy, with faint veins that shimmered like silver threads under the sun. Its interior was lined with a thin, almost imperceptible layer of gold which caught the light of the dawn in a way that seemed unnatural, as though it were reflecting not the sun but the fire within the heavens themselves. Legends said that when thunder rolled across the valley, the bowl would hum softly, a low vibration that could be felt through the floor beneath the feet, resonating in the bones of anyone who dared to approach it. Children would run away at the sound, and even the bravest of hunters, accustomed to the cold winds and the echoes of avalanches, would pause, eyes wide, certain that the bowl was whispering secrets meant only for the mountains. The bowl had been hidden in a small shrine, built into the rock itself, accessible only by a narrow path that twisted and climbed along sheer cliffs. To reach it, one had to pass under arches carved from stone, where the carvings of mythical animals and serpents seemed almost alive, as if watching, guiding, or perhaps warning. Each step was deliberate, measured, the air thinning, carrying the scent of pine resin and the faint tang of distant snow. Those who had glimpsed the bowl described it as pulsing with energy, not in a way that frightened, but in a way that demanded attention, a slow heartbeat beneath the surface of the world. It was said that the shamans who had once tended it could hear voices in the wind, messages from clouds and lightning itself. The inscriptions on the rim, etched so finely they were nearly invisible, were said to be prayers or incantations, warnings or instructions. Scholars had attempted to translate them, but the language seemed alive, shifting with the sun and the storms, a riddle that refused to be solved. One particularly stormy evening, when the clouds gathered low and the mountains were hidden in mist, a traveler from the distant plains arrived in the village. He carried nothing but a leather satchel and a notebook, and though he was a scholar by trade, he moved with a quiet reverence as if he already knew the power of what awaited him. Villagers watched him climb the winding path alone, disappearing into the fog, and they whispered prayers for his safety. For they understood that the bowl that held thunder was not merely an artifact, but a test, a threshold between the known and the unknowable. As he reached the shrine, the wind began to moan, carrying with it the scent of wet stone and cold air from the highest peaks. The doors of the shrine were carved with symbols of clouds and lightning, worn smooth by centuries of hands that had come seeking the bowl. He pushed them open slowly, the hinges groaning softly, and stepped into the dim interior. There, at the center, the bowl rested on a pedestal of stone illuminated by the fractured light of the storm outside. It seemed impossibly still, yet alive, the gold interior gleaming faintly as if aware of his presence. He approached, each step careful, each breath measured. The bowl seemed to hum, faintly at first, then louder, vibrating through the stone floor and into his chest. He reached out, hesitant, fingertips brushing the cold metal surface, and then, as though the clouds themselves had descended, a flash of lightning illuminated the shrine, casting shadows that danced across the walls. The bowl responded with a resonance that rolled through the mountains, a deep, echoing tone that seemed to speak of storms long past, of rainfalls that had carved valleys, and of winds that had shaped the peaks. The scholar opened his notebook, attempting to capture what he saw and heard, but words failed him. He wrote of the sensation, the hum that spoke directly to his mind, of visions of clouds gathering over ancient cities, of rivers swelling with unseen force. The bowl did not merely contain thunder, it remembered it, it held it, as if it had been born from the very heart of storms, and in its memory were echoes of rituals long forgotten, of shamans who danced with lightning, of prayers whispered to summon rain for the fields below. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time felt distorted within the shrine. Outside, the storm continued, a rolling symphony of wind and water. The traveler closed his eyes, listening to the bowl, letting its vibrations guide his thoughts. And in that quiet communion, he began to understand the purpose of the artifact. It was not a weapon, nor a tool, nor simply a vessel for worship. It was a bridge, a connection between the earth and sky, between human curiosity and the raw power of nature, a reminder that some forces could never be tamed, only honored. When he finally stepped back, the storm had begun to wane, leaving a mist that clung to the mountains like a veil. The bowl was silent now, still as stone, yet he could feel its presence lingering, an invisible pulse that seemed to echo in his own heartbeat. He descended the path carefully, each step steeped in reflection, carrying with him the knowledge that he had touched something older and more alive than any text or legend could convey. The villagers greeted him at the edge of the forest, anxious and relieved. He spoke little, only sharing glimpses of the bowl's resonance, of its power to hold thunder and memory together. They nodded knowingly, understanding that some stories, like the storms themselves, were meant to be felt more than spoken, that some relics were alive in ways that required humility and patience to comprehend. He returned to his notebook later that evening, sketching the bowl, recording the carvings, and describing the hum that seemed to vibrate even through the paper. Yet even as he wrote, he realized that words could never fully capture it. The bowl's essence was not meant for documentation alone. It was meant to be experienced, to be felt through presence and attention, to remind humanity of its place beneath the sky, and of the storms that shaped the land long before men had walked upon it. Years later, when scholars spoke of the ceremonial bowl of Nepal, they spoke of it with reverence, of a vessel that held not just sound, but memory, energy, and connection. Expeditions returned, stories grew, and yet the bowl remained elusive, always just out of reach for those seeking to own it. For it belonged not to individuals, but to the mountains, to the storms, to the skies that had birthed it. And in this understanding, the artifact's true power remained intact, timeless, and whispering through the ages. Even today, when the wind sweeps across the Himalayan valleys, those who listen carefully might hear a soft vibration, the echo of thunder contained within the ancient bowl, a reminder that some objects are more than their material, that some relics carry the heartbeat of the earth itself, and that in the quiet moments of reflection, the bowl that held thunder continues to speak. It is a story that lingers in the mind, like distant lightning, illuminating corners of history otherwise unseen, a tale that binds us to those who came before, and to forces far older than any civilization. In its presence, one cannot help but feel the passage of time, the vastness of the world, and the subtle magic that has persisted across centuries. And so the bowl waits, as it always has, nestled within its stone sanctuary, humming softly to those who dare to approach, whispering the memory of storms, and offering a quiet, profound reminder that the earth, the sky, and the human spirit are intertwined, that some mysteries are meant to endure, and that the heart of a storm can be captured, if only for a moment, in the shape of a humble ceremonial bowl. The coin that refused to fall. In the ancient city-states along the eastern Mediterranean, where the waves lapped against the shores of Phoenicia and merchants' voices echoed across stone-paved streets, there existed a coin unlike any other. Known to those who whispered of it as the coin that refused to fall, it was said to possess a weight and presence far beyond the ordinary. A small piece of metal that carried within it the memory of winds, tides, and countless hands that had held it through centuries. Traders spoke of it in hushed tones, not merely as currency, but as a relic, a fragment of an age where commerce, magic, and the divine intertwined. The coin itself was no larger than the palm of a child, yet it carried a depth that seemed to defy its size. Its surface shimmered faintly in the sunlight, a soft glimmer that shifted with the movement of the eye, as though it were aware of being observed. The intricate etchings along its face depicted a pair of dolphins arching over waves, intertwined with symbols that scholars had struggled for generations to decipher. Some insisted they were celestial markings, a code linking the coin to the movements of the stars. Others believed the symbols were protective sigils, meant to ward off misfortune in trade and travel. Legends told of sailors who carried the coin across treacherous seas, surviving storms that had claimed countless other ships. They would say that when the coin was held tightly in the palm, the wind seemed to calm, the waves to align, and the vessel to find its course with uncanny precision. Merchants too swore that whenever they set the coin upon a counter, it refused to topple or roll, balancing perfectly even on the roughest surfaces, as if asserting its own will, defying gravity, and insisting upon acknowledgement. It was said that the coin had been minted in the heart of the Phoenician capital, a city alive with the scent of salt water, cedar, and the spice-laden air of distant lands. Artisans of remarkable skill had worked upon it, blending metals not merely for durability, but for resonance. When the coin was struck, it emitted a tone faint yet clear, a hum that could be felt through the fingers of the one who held it. In the quiet of a candle-lit chamber, this hum was said to echo thoughts, stirring memories long forgotten, recalling the faces of ancestors, the roar of distant markets, and the hush of the sea at dawn. Scholars who had attempted to study the coin were often unprepared for its subtle influence. They noted that it seemed to resist classification, refusing to conform to known standards of weight or composition. Chemical analysis revealed an unusual alloy, a mixture of copper, silver, and traces of a metal so rare that its origin remained uncertain. When placed upon scales, it sometimes read impossibly light or impossibly heavy, as though responding to the intention of the observer, aware of desire and doubt, of greed and wonder. The coin's history was interwoven with the rise and fall of empires. Phoenician traders carried it to ports across the Mediterranean, where it found its way into the hands of kings, merchants, and adventurers. Some accounts told of a Roman consul who had attempted to seize the coin, only to find it slipping from his grasp as if rejecting the power and corruption he carried. Others spoke of mystics in Alexandria, who observed its behavior and concluded that it was imbued with a spirit, a consciousness tied to the city that had birthed it, or perhaps to the sea itself. In one particularly vivid tale, a young merchant traveling from Tyre to Carthage carried the coin in his satchel, unaware of its true nature. A storm erupted in the middle of the sea, waves towering above the deck, threatening to swallow both ship and crew. As the merchant clutched the coin, it began to vibrate lightly in his hand, a gentle thrumming that seemed to match the rhythm of his own heartbeat. Miraculously, the winds shifted, the waves calmed, and the vessel reached harbor safely, leaving the sailors in awe of a force they could neither name nor explain. The coin had, in essence, refused to fall, refusing to succumb to the chaos of the world around it. Merchants and collectors throughout history learned to respect its subtle power. The coin was never used lightly. It was not tossed carelessly or spent frivolously. Those who held it did so with reverence, aware that the artifact carried more than mere monetary value. It was a reminder of the delicate balance between chance and intention, of forces that could be felt but not fully measured, of history itself refusing to be contained. In the quiet libraries of Europe, after the coin had traveled from the Levant to the courts of scholars and kings, it drew fascination for its uncanny properties. Historians wrote of it in footnotes and marginalia, noting instances where it seemed to defy natural law, or where it appeared in locations that history should have rendered impossible. Numismatists marveled at the precision of its engraving, the delicate interplay of metals, the faint hum that persisted even in the absence of motion. Yet no one could fully explain why it resisted falling, why it balanced so perfectly, or why it seemed almost alive. It was said that during times of war, the coin was hidden deep within the vaults of temples or the recesses of merchant houses. Soldiers who stumbled upon it spoke of an eerie calm that settled over the battlefield when it was nearby, a fleeting sense of order amid chaos. Priests and seers claimed that it was a tool of prophecy, capable of revealing truths hidden in the future, if one could only interpret its subtle vibrations. For some, the coin was a talisman. For others, it was a puzzle, an enigma that challenged both intellect and intuition. Travelers who ventured into Phoenician ruins in the modern era continued to report experiences that echoed the old tales. Archaeologists, guided by meticulous records and a sense of curiosity, uncovered the coin buried beneath layers of sand and stone, perfectly preserved. When lifted from its resting place, it was as though the air itself changed, carrying the faint scent of cedar and salt, and the quiet, persistent hum of distant waves. Even in the absence of sun or storm, the coin seemed aware, maintaining a presence that transcended the ordinary. As the centuries passed, the coin's legend grew. Stories of its power to influence luck, to guide ships, to resist chaos, spread from Lebanon to the far reaches of the Mediterranean and beyond. Yet despite its fame, the coin remained elusive, always just beyond grasp, never fully subdued by human hands. Scholars, collectors, and even kings could admire it, study it, and revere it, but it continued to refuse the simplicity of mere ownership, defying the ordinary passage of objects from hand to hand, from age to age. Even today, in quiet moments along the Mediterranean coast, when the sun reflects off the water and the wind carries the faint brine of the sea, one might feel a subtle pull, a whisper that seems to come from something small yet ancient. It is the coin's way of reminding us of its presence, its history, and the countless storms and journeys it has witnessed. It is a link to an era when trade and divination were inseparable, when metal could carry memory, and when a simple coin could hold within it the echo of the heavens themselves. In the end, the coin that refused to fall is not merely a piece of metal, it is a vessel of history, memory, and subtle power. It reminds us that objects can be alive in ways we scarcely understand, that the past is not always fixed, and that the small things, held with care, can influence the course of events far beyond their apparent size. It is a lesson in reverence, patience, and the unseen connections between the earth, the sky, and those who walk between them. And so it rests, somewhere in Lebanon, waiting for the next hand that will recognize its significance, ready to hum its ancient song once more, to remind us that history is alive, and that even the smallest coin can hold the weight of centuries, the memory of storms, and the quiet refusal to fall. The ring that slept in stone. In the dense, mist-covered forests of Burma, where rivers cut through emerald canopies and sunlight barely touched the forest floor, there existed a ring unlike any other, a ring that had slumbered within stone for centuries, waiting patiently to be found. Its emerald centerpiece glowed faintly, a deep green reminiscent of the jungles and the moss-covered ruins that surrounded it, as if the earth itself had chosen to cradle it. This was the ring that slept in stone, an artifact whispered about in hushed tones by villagers, travelers, and the few historians who had glimpsed it in their studies. Legends told that the ring was crafted not merely as a piece of jewelry, but as a vessel of intention, a connection between the world of men and the mysteries of nature. The band, fashioned from gold, mined from distant mountains, was etched with delicate patterns, intricate swirls and sigils that seemed to shift subtly when observed for long periods. Some said these carvings depicted the cycles of the moon and the movement of the stars, a cosmic map for those patient enough to read it. Others believed they were protective runes, designed to guard the wearer from harm, or perhaps to safeguard the ring itself until the moment it was truly needed. For generations, the ring lay dormant within a slab of limestone, deep in the heart of a mountain temple long abandoned. It was a place where time seemed to bend and still, where the wind whispered through cracked walls and the faint drip of water marked the passage of centuries. Many had searched for it, drawn by stories passed down through families and chroniclers alike, yet few had approached the stone with the reverence necessary to awaken it. The ring did not yield to brute force or greed. It required patience, insight, and a quiet understanding of its surroundings. When at last the stone was chipped away and the ring revealed, its emerald heart pulsed softly, as if recognizing the presence of life beyond the stone. Those who touched it reported a sensation unlike anything else, an almost imperceptible vibration, a warmth that spread from the fingertips through the arm, and a sense of history pressing gently against the mind. The ring seemed aware, as though it had been listening all those years, and now acknowledged the world once more. Stories of the ring spread quickly among explorers and scholars. Some recounted that when the ring was worn, it seemed to reveal glimpses of the past, images of those who had carved temples, worshipped in hidden groves, and performed rituals under the light of 1,000 full moons. Others described a curious effect. The ring could calm storms and still turbulent waters, a subtle influence that seemed attuned to the natural world. It was as if the ring had absorbed the essence of the forest, the mountain, and the river, holding them in quiet suspension until the right moment. The emerald itself was extraordinary. Unlike other gems, it appeared almost alive, with tiny internal currents that shifted when viewed from different angles. Scholars who examined it spoke of its clarity and depth, noting that it seemed to hold the reflection of entire forests within its facets. Some believed the stone was harvested from a sacred site, a place where the earth's energy was concentrated and intense. Others suggested that the gem had been enchanted, imbued with a subtle magic by a master artisan who understood the secrets of nature and spirit. Over centuries, the ring passed from hand to hand, though always with caution. Kings and nobles sought it, drawn by its beauty and the whispered promise of power. Mystics and monks revered it, sensing its deeper resonance with the natural world. Each who possessed it felt its presence differently, some experiencing visions, others a profound calm, and yet others an uncanny alertness, as if the ring were aware of its wearer's intentions. Those who approached it with greed or arrogance often found that the ring resisted, slipping from their grasp or becoming inexplicably heavy, a reminder that it demanded respect rather than desire. Travelers who ventured near the original resting place of the ring spoke of strange phenomena, a faint hum in the air, shadows that lingered longer than they should, and the sense that the forest itself watched silently. Some reported seeing flashes of green light between the trees, reflections in still pools, or the brief outline of a figure kneeling in contemplation. These accounts, passed down through generations, only added to the ring's mystique, painting it not merely as an object, but as a bridge between worlds, the human, the natural, and the unseen. As empires rose and fell, the ring's legend endured. The artisans who had crafted it faded into history, their names lost to time. Yet the emerald continued to pulse softly, holding within it the memory of their work, their devotion, and their understanding of the world's hidden patterns. The ring was both a relic and a living testament, a small but enduring piece of the Earth's story. In modern times, archaeologists and gemologists alike have marveled at the ring. Its age and condition defy conventional explanation, as if it were protected by more than stone or air, by intention, patience, and perhaps a kind of consciousness. They describe the meticulous craftsmanship, the subtle variations in the metalwork, and the unusual clarity of the emerald. But even with microscopes, chemical tests, and digital mapping, the full essence of the ring cannot be captured. Its power lies not merely in its composition, but in the story it carries, the centuries it has witnessed, and the quiet intelligence it seems to possess. Collectors who have encountered the ring tell of its unique presence. It does not demand admiration, it invites contemplation. When placed on a table, it seems to anchor the space, commanding awareness without words. Those who sit with it for hours describe a sense of time stretching, of listening not only to the coin but to the stories embedded in the world around them. The rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, the shifting light through latticed windows. It is a meditation in miniature, a relic that teaches patience and observation. The ring's enduring legend also intertwines with mystery and danger. Tales speak of thieves who sought it and vanished, of those who tried to sell it for profit, only to find it lost inexplicably. The ring's ability to elude capture reinforced the notion that it was alive in some sense, that it chose its path, and that it would reveal itself only to those who approached with respect. Many theorists suggest that the ring acts as a repository of memory, preserving the history of the lands, the forest, and the artisans who created it, waiting for a worthy observer to understand. Even today, in quiet moments in the jungles of Myanmar, or the quiet corners of museum archives, the ring's presence can be felt. Scholars working late at night have described subtle tingles in their fingers when they handle it, a faint sense of being observed by the past. Tour guides in local villages recount how the stories of the ring pass from elder to child, each retelling adding layers of reverence, myth, and careful instruction. It is not merely a piece of jewelry, but a teacher, a sentinel, and a mirror reflecting both the human spirit and the persistent pulse of nature. The ring that slept in stone reminds us of the persistence of history, the depth of craft, and the subtle ways in which objects can influence thought, emotion, and perhaps even destiny. Its emerald heart is a quiet voice calling across centuries, connecting those who encounter it with the world that bore it and the people who shaped it. To hold it is to hold the weight of history, the hum of the earth, and the soft glow of a presence that has survived storms, neglect, and the relentless passage of time. In its slumber, it teaches patience. In its glow, it teaches observation. In its existence, it teaches reverence. The ring remains, as it always has, waiting silently in stone, reminding us that the smallest objects can carry the largest secrets, and that sometimes, the world's most extraordinary relics do not demand to be understood, only acknowledged, respected, and held in quiet awe. The wall that learned to speak. Deep within the arid plains of ancient Mesopotamia, where rivers like the Tigris and Euphrates carved their paths through the earth, there stood a temple that whispered secrets of millennia. Its walls, composed of sun-baked bricks and adorned with intricate reliefs, were said to have a presence unlike any other. These were not mere stones arranged to create shelter or ceremony. These were walls that had learned to speak. The temple relief, as scholars later called it, was more than decorative. It was a living chronicle, a storyteller frozen in clay, and an echo of civilizations long past. The relief depicted scenes of kings and priests, of harvests and sacrifices, of the daily lives of a people whose footsteps had once carried the weight of empires. But there was something extraordinary about it. The carvings seemed to communicate beyond their physical form. The patterns, when observed in the right light, suggested movement, as though the figures were breathing, and the eyes of the gods etched into the stone followed the passers-by with a quiet, knowing gaze. Villagers believed that the wall listened to prayers, to laughter, to tears, and that it responded subtly, carrying these emotions through the centuries. Legends spoke of the wall's unique origin. It was said that the temple's master artisans were guided by visions, dreams in which the gods instructed them, not merely on form but on function. Each relief, each etched line, each intricate symbol was designed to capture not just memory but essence, to allow the wall to record more than images, to record intention, emotion, and the invisible currents of life. When the sun rose over the plains and cast its first light upon the relief, shadows danced across the stone, bringing the carvings to life, narrating their stories to anyone who paused long enough to see. Over centuries, travelers and scholars tried to decipher the messages encoded within the stone. Some believed the wall conveyed divine instructions, others that it recorded historical events with a precision beyond human memory. Priests who tended to the temple attested that the wall was capable of influencing thought, of instilling calm or awe, guiding decisions, and imparting silent counsel. To touch the wall was to feel history vibrate beneath the fingertips, a pulse that connected the present with the distant past. The reliefs included more than just human figures. Animals, symbolic flora, celestial motifs, and abstract forms were interwoven with astonishing intricacy. Some patterns appeared to shift when viewed from different angles, creating optical illusions that hinted at hidden narratives. Scholars later theorized that the artisans had understood principles of visual perception and depth that were advanced for their time, encoding meaning not only in shape but in movement and light. The wall became both a canvas and a communicator, its stone surface capable of transmitting ideas across generations without a single word being spoken aloud. Even the placement of each relief mattered. The temple itself was carefully aligned with the rising and setting sun, and the reliefs reflected this alignment. At dawn, certain scenes would glow, revealing elements otherwise unnoticed, and at dusk, shadows would emphasize the solemnity of ritual, the gravity of power, or the quiet endurance of everyday life. Observers often described an uncanny sensation, a subtle awareness of being watched, guided, or quietly instructed. Throughout invasions, conquests, and the passage of empires, the temple endured. Many other structures fell into ruin, but the walls of this sanctuary remained, largely intact, continuing to speak through their etched forms. Even when layers of dust and grime accumulated over the centuries, the reliefs retained their presence. Restoration efforts centuries later revealed astonishing craftsmanship, the fine balance between artistic expression and encoded intelligence, and the subtle ways in which the wall had captured the rhythm of life long after its creators had passed. Those who spent time studying the wall often described transformative experiences. A historian might find insight into ancient laws, a poet inspiration for verse, a traveler an overwhelming sense of connection to humanity's long past. The wall seemed to respond uniquely to each observer, offering guidance, curiosity, or reflection in alignment with their own heart and mind. It did not speak in words but in resonance, in the quiet understanding that history is both lived and remembered, and that stone can bear witness just as powerfully as pen or scroll. The temple relief was not only a record, but a teacher. It demonstrated how civilizations could communicate across time, how art could encode meaning beyond surface beauty, and how reverence for craft and intention could render objects almost alive. Every groove and indentation, every subtle pattern carried centuries of thought, prayer, and experience. The wall's voice was quiet but persistent, a reminder that even the inanimate could bear witness, offer counsel, and hold the collective memory of a culture within its embrace. Today, the relief continues to captivate. Archaeologists, travelers, and enthusiasts from around the world visit the ancient site, marveling at the wall's enduring presence. In the right light, the carvings appear animated. The stories of kings, priests, laborers, and worshippers resonate with anyone who takes the time to pause and observe. The wall that learned to speak teaches patience, perception, and humility, reminding us that history is not only what is written in books but also what is etched in stone, preserved in silence, and waiting for the attentive to understand. The wall that learned to speak remains a profound symbol of human ingenuity, spiritual devotion, and the remarkable ways in which our ancestors sought to communicate with the future. Every scratch, every carving, every shadow, is part of a language that has endured millennia, bridging the gap between past and present. In its presence, one learns that communication transcends sound, that stone can hold memory, and that even the quietest forms can carry the most enduring messages. The wall whispers to all who listen patiently, teaching the value of observation, reflection, and the enduring power of intention, leaving a legacy that, even in silence, continues to speak across the ages. The mirror that hid the sky. Long before modern optics or telescopes, long before the convenience of glass that perfectly reflected light, there existed objects of extraordinary craftsmanship whose very presence seemed to alter perception. Among these artifacts, one stands out for its enigmatic beauty and mysterious purpose, a silver mirror from ancient Persia, known in legend as the mirror that hid the sky. Unlike ordinary mirrors, which reflect the world in simple replication, this mirror was said to capture not only appearances but glimpses of the hidden, the celestial, and the unseen. It was a relic that demanded attention, contemplation, and respect, for it was not merely a tool, but a gateway to understanding the profound interplay between earth, sky, and human consciousness. Crafted by master silversmiths, whose names have been lost to time, the mirror was polished to a brilliance so pure that it seemed to glow with an inner light. Its surface was extraordinarily smooth, reflecting not only forms but intentions. Legends suggest that those who gazed into it could see more than their own reflection. They could glimpse fragments of the heavens, faint outlines of stars long extinguished, or shadows of events yet to come. Court scholars and mystics claimed that the mirror was imbued with knowledge, perhaps through ritual, perhaps through the skill of its makers, who were said to have aligned the piece with the movements of celestial bodies, forging a connection between the terrestrial and the divine. The mirror's existence was shrouded in secrecy. Hidden deep within Persian palaces, it was rarely seen by ordinary citizens. Only kings, priests, and select scholars were permitted to approach it, each visit carefully orchestrated and steeped in ceremonial significance. Ancient texts hint that gazing into the mirror was considered both a privilege and a test. It was said to reveal truths that the unprepared mind could not bear. For the wise and patient, it offered insight. For the hasty or impure, it could unsettle or confuse, reflecting fears and desires as much as reality. Stories passed down through generations speak of extraordinary experiences. One account tells of a scholar who, peering into the mirror during the festival of Nowruz, saw not only his own face, but a vision of the Milky Way in delicate silver strands, as if the night sky itself had been captured and condensed into the mirror's plane. Another tale recounts a young prince who, while seeking counsel, gazed too long and became lost in visions of future battles and fleeting alliances, unable to discern present from possibility. The mirror was not passive, it engaged the viewer, demanding reflection, patience, and insight. The design of the mirror was intricate. Beyond its polished surface, its frame bore celestial motifs, engraved symbols representing constellations, planetary movements, and mythological narratives. Each mark was intentional, each curve and line contributing to an understanding of the cosmos as the Persians perceived it. Some scholars propose that the mirror functioned as a teaching tool for astronomy and astrology, encoding knowledge in a visual and tactile form. Unlike modern instruments, it was experiential. To study the stars through the mirror was to merge observation with meditation, to sense the heavens through a dialogue with reflective metal rather than through charts or diagrams. Its history is a tapestry woven from conquest, secrecy, and reverence. Over centuries, the mirror survived invasions, looting, and political upheaval, often being hidden away to prevent it from falling into unworthy hands. In some periods, it became an object of superstition, regarded as dangerous or cursed, for the visions it revealed could unsettle those unprepared to receive them. Priests who safeguarded it performed rituals to maintain its purity, cleansing it of dust and the residue of mortal thought, ensuring that its surface remained a conduit to higher truths. Legends also suggest that the mirror had abilities beyond reflection. Some believed it could obscure the sky itself, capturing sunlight and starlight, creating illusions that protected sacred spaces from enemies or prying eyes. Others spoke of its capacity to reveal hidden intentions, to uncover deceit in those who approached it with guile, reflecting not only appearance but character. It was, in essence, a device of discernment, a tool that could see through layers of reality that ordinary senses could not penetrate. Travelers and historians who later wrote of the mirror describe an almost spiritual resonance. Its surface seemed alive, responding to shifts in light, angle, and attention. The very act of looking into it was an exercise in mindfulness, forcing one to slow down, observe carefully, and confront both the self and the larger world. It was more than an object, it was an experience, a teaching, a bridge between earthly perception and celestial understanding. Even the materials themselves held significance. Silver, prized not only for its beauty but for its symbolic and spiritual qualities, was believed to have protective properties, reflecting not just light but energy, absorbing negativity, and amplifying intention. In the mirror, the silver was perfected to an almost supernatural degree, its surface a medium through which the divine and the mortal conversed silently, intimately, and persistently. Over time, as empires shifted and knowledge was lost, the mirror vanished from the historical record. Some claim it was hidden in a desert tomb, others that it was melted down, its silver repurposed. Yet its legacy endures, preserved in writings, myths, and the collective imagination. Scholars still debate its true nature. Was it merely a highly polished ceremonial object, or did it truly allow glimpses beyond the ordinary, bridging mortal perception with the heavens? The answer remains elusive, for the mirror's power was subtle, personal, and deeply tied to the mindset of those who approached it. What is certain is that the mirror that hid the sky represents humanity's enduring fascination with reflection, vision, and the mysteries of the cosmos. It embodies a desire to see beyond the surface, to understand the interplay between light, matter, and consciousness. In its silver plane, ancient Persians captured not just form, but essence, revealing the world as they understood it, dynamic, interconnected, and infused with meaning. For those who study it today, even through fragments, descriptions, or reproductions, the mirror continues to inspire awe. Its story reminds us that objects are never merely objects. They carry with them the intentions, skill, and vision of their creators. They hold the capacity to educate, to challenge, and to transform. The mirror that hid the sky stands as a testament to human curiosity, ingenuity, and the eternal pursuit of understanding the world beyond what is immediately visible. Every glance into this legendary artifact was an invitation to ponder the heavens, the self, and the invisible forces that shape existence. It challenges the viewer to consider the relationship between reflection and reality, between what is seen and what is known, and between the fleeting present and the enduring cosmos. In its polished surface, light and shadow, history and imagination converge, forming a quiet, profound dialogue that continues to captivate minds, centuries after its creation. The mirror that hid the sky reminds us that even the simplest of materials, silver, carefully shaped and polished, can hold the deepest mysteries. It teaches patience, observation, and reflection. It preserves the memory of an ancient civilization's vision of the world, and in doing so, invites every observer to seek, to question, and to wonder, forever linking the mortal gaze with the vast expanse of the heavens. The necklace that caught moonlight. Beneath the blazing sun of the ancient Nubian deserts, where the sands stretch like oceans and the horizon shimmers with heat, there lies a secret that has survived millennia, hidden in plain sight, yet whispered about only in hushed tones by those who dare to speak of treasures older than kingdoms themselves. It is here, amidst the crumbling ruins of temples and forgotten burial mounds, that the story of a necklace begins. A necklace that caught moonlight. A relic of gold that seemed to hold not only wealth but the essence of the night sky itself. The gold of Nubia was unlike that of any other land. Mined from veins deep within the earth, it carried a warmth, an almost breathing quality that made it desirable not only for adornment but for the spiritual resonance it was believed to carry. The people who first crafted this necklace were artisans whose hands were guided by an intuition that bordered on divine. They were not merely jewelers, they were interpreters of celestial patterns, reading the heavens and translating their mysteries into tangible form. Each link of the necklace, every delicate curve and tiny emblem etched into the gold, was made to mirror the shimmer of stars reflected on water or the subtle glow of the moon over desert sands at night. Legend says that when the necklace was first forged, it was presented to a queen or high priestess whose name has been lost to time. She was a figure of immense power, ruling over her people with wisdom and a quiet authority that demanded respect and inspired devotion. The necklace was not only a symbol of her earthly rule, but a conduit for the divine, a way to capture the moon's light and reflect it back into the world, blessing the land, the crops, and the hearts of those who dwelled in the shadows of the Nile's tributaries. It was said that on nights of the full moon, the necklace would glow with a subtle luminescence, as if it had trapped pieces of the celestial orb itself within its golden embrace. Archaeologists who have uncovered fragments of similar Nubian jewelry speak of the meticulous craftsmanship that defined these pieces. The gold was hammered and shaped with techniques that even today remain impressive in their precision. Small gemstones, sometimes turquoise or lapis lazuli, were set with painstaking care, each stone chosen for its symbolic resonance, each placement deliberate. The interplay of gold and stone, light and shadow, was not merely decorative. It was intended to interact with the natural cycles, to capture the phases of the moon and the passage of the stars. Some experts suggest that the necklaces acted almost as calendars or timekeepers, their designs encoding information about lunar cycles, agricultural seasons, or significant astronomical events. But it is not only in its beauty that this necklace captivates. Its story is entwined with mystery, with whispers of power and danger that accompany objects of immense worth. There are accounts, though undocumented in conventional history, of the necklace's disappearance from the royal treasury, spirited away in the dead of night, leaving those who guarded it bewildered and afraid. Rumors among local storytellers speak of a caravan ambushed in the desert, of a gleaming chain of gold lifted into the air by some unseen force, vanishing into the dunes. Others claim that the necklace carries a curse, that its radiance, while mesmerizing, exacts a toll on those who covet it too greedily or fail to respect its sacred origin. The craftsmanship of the necklace hints at a society that valued not only material wealth but spiritual wealth as well. Gold in Nubia was considered sacred, a metal imbued with the essence of the sun, and a bridge between mortals and gods. To wear the necklace was to claim a form of that sacred power, to align oneself with cosmic rhythms and forces beyond the ordinary reach of human perception. The high priestesses who donned it were thought to act as intermediaries, channeling energies that could heal, protect, and guide. And yet the necklace's glow, its capture of moonlight, suggests an understanding that even the darkness holds power. It was not simply the brilliance of day that mattered, but the quiet luminescence of night, the silvered glow that illuminated shadows and revealed hidden truths. Consider the journey of the necklace through time. Its origin in a prosperous Nubian kingdom, thriving on trade, agriculture, and knowledge of astronomy, marked it as an object of influence. Nubia, stretching along the Nile and encompassing lands that are now parts of modern-day Sudan and southern Egypt, was a nexus of culture and power. Its artisans were exposed to influences from Egypt to the north, to the kingdoms of sub-Saharan Africa to the south. Yet the necklace bears a distinctly Nubian signature, a blend of precise geometry, symbolic motifs, and celestial inspiration that signals not mere imitation, but innovation, an expression of a unique worldview that valued harmony between the material and the spiritual, the earthly and the cosmic. It is easy to imagine the necklace in its original setting, laid upon the chest of a revered figure during ritual ceremonies. The air would be thick with incense, the chanting of priests resonating in the stone halls. Torchlight would flicker across walls painted with scenes of the Nile, of deities, of animals imbued with symbolic meaning. And there, at the center, the necklace would shimmer, catching light in a way that seemed almost impossible, reflecting not just fire but a presence, a quiet reminder that the divine was near, accessible to those who honored it with respect and reverence. The reflective gold and carefully chosen stones would seem to pulse in rhythm with the ceremony, a visual heartbeat that synchronized with prayers and offerings. Over centuries, as kingdoms fell and empires shifted, the necklace would have witnessed countless changes: invaders from distant lands, traders bringing new goods, priests guarding or losing sacred knowledge. The necklace remained, a silent observer of history, carrying within its delicate chains the memory of the civilizations it had touched. Its disappearance in later periods adds a layer of intrigue. Perhaps it was hidden to prevent desecration, perhaps it was stolen, perhaps it was offered as tribute to a new ruler or deity. The absence of clear records only enhances its mystique, prompting both scholars and enthusiasts to imagine the paths it may have traveled. Some believe that the necklace's design contains hidden codes, symbols meant to convey wisdom or prophecy. A crescent etched into a clasp could mark lunar phases. A cluster of dots could represent stars that guide sailors along the Nile. Interwoven lines might trace river tributaries, seasons, or celestial alignments. In this sense, the necklace is not merely jewelry, but a repository of knowledge, a compact oracle of sorts, encoding in gold the understanding of a people deeply attuned to the cycles of nature and the heavens. Even today, the allure of the necklace endures. Collectors, historians, and enthusiasts dream of uncovering it, of tracing the shimmer of its gold and the whisper of its history. Its legend has crossed continents, inspiring artists, storytellers, and scholars alike. While it may be lost to the sands of time, the story persists, reminding us of the ingenuity, reverence, and artistry of the Nubian people. The necklace is more than a relic. It is a testament to a civilization that saw beauty in the night sky, that captured light to honor life and spirit, and that left behind objects whose presence still ignites wonder. As one reflects on this golden treasure, it becomes clear that it is more than metal and stones. It is a bridge between eras, between human and divine, between the tangible and the ethereal. Each imagined glint of moonlight upon its surface, each imagined weight of gold resting against a breast, invites the mind to wander through deserts, temples, and night skies, to feel the pulse of ancient Nubia, to sense the presence of hands that shaped and eyes that dreamed and hearts that believed. The necklace that caught moonlight remains, in stories and imagination, a luminous echo of civilizations past, a silent witness to history, and an eternal symbol of the unbroken thread between humanity and the cosmos. The mask that sang shadows. Deep within the heart of West Africa, where the dense forests rise like living cathedrals and the rivers snake through the land as veins of life, there exists a tradition that intertwines the mortal with the spiritual in ways that seem almost tangible. In the midst of this world, a mask was born, not merely an object, but a vessel of presence, a creation that could embody the spirits of ancestors, the whispers of the earth, and the shadows that flicker between realms. This is the story of the mask that sang shadows, a ritual mask from the Yoruba people of Nigeria, whose echoes have traveled across centuries, carrying secrets that remain unspoken even to those who claim to understand. The Yoruba civilization has long been recognized for its intricate artistry, spiritual depth, and profound connection to the unseen. The creation of ritual masks was not a casual affair. Each mask was more than a representation. It was a vessel, carefully fashioned to channel energies beyond the ordinary perception of humans. The artisans who shaped these masks were both craftsmen and spiritual intermediaries, trained not only in the techniques of carving and decoration, but also in the sacred traditions, oral histories, and mystical understandings that gave life to the inanimate. To hold a mask was to hold the breath of generations, to cradle the whispers of ancestors who had long since passed, and to invite the spirits to dance upon the world once more. The mask that sang shadows was carved from sacred wood, chosen for its spiritual resonance and for the life force believed to be within its grain. Some say the artisans would select a tree after consulting with oracles, ensuring that the spirit within the wood was compatible with the intended use of the mask. The carvings were meticulous, with patterns that intertwined geometric precision with symbolic motifs representing protection, fertility, wisdom, and the delicate balance between light and darkness. The eyes, hollow yet penetrating, were said to allow the spirit to see both the mortal world and the realm of ancestors. The mouth, slightly open, was meant to sing, not with sound but with energy, emitting the presence of the spiritual plane into ceremonies where humans could perceive it in flickers of movement, shadow, and intuition. When worn during ritual ceremonies, the mask became more than wood, pigment, and string. It transformed into a conduit for ancestral voices. The drumming, the chants, the movement of the dancers, all these elements combined to animate the mask, allowing it to project shadows across the walls, the ground, and the eyes of those who witnessed it. In the flickering torchlight, The shadows seemed alive, stretching, shrinking, and moving with a rhythm that suggested consciousness. The people who wore these masks were not performing, they were inhabiting, channeling, and giving voice to spirits who existed in a realm only partially visible to the living. To see the mask in motion was to witness the past and present merging, to feel the heartbeat of generations, and to sense the thin veil between life and death quiver with energy. The Yoruba believed that shadows carried messages, often from the ancestors, or from spirits who were neither wholly benevolent nor malevolent. Shadows could reveal hidden truths, warn of danger, or offer guidance to those who approached them with respect. The mask, by singing shadows, became a medium through which these messages were conveyed. Each flicker, each distortion, was read and interpreted by priests and elders, whose wisdom allowed them to translate the abstract movements into actionable understanding for the community. The mask, therefore, was both a mirror and a voice, reflecting the unseen and articulating the unspoken. Over centuries, the mask would have been used in rites of passage, initiation ceremonies, funerary observances, and seasonal festivals. It witnessed the cycles of life and death, the succession of rulers, the ebb and flow of village prosperity, and the rhythms of the natural world. Some of these masks were inherited across generations, each wearer adding subtle traces of energy, intention, and movement, creating layers of meaning that accumulated like sediment in a riverbed. To study the mask today is to glimpse not only the skill of the artisan, but the accumulated spiritual history of a people who understood that objects could hold memory, emotion, and power. Archaeologists and anthropologists who have studied Yoruba masks note the extraordinary attention to detail in construction. Every curve and line has significance, every material chosen with care. Pigments derived from natural clays, minerals, and plant dyes were applied not only for beauty, but for their symbolic and spiritual properties. Feathers, beads, cowrie shells, and textiles often adorned the mask, each item adding resonance, energy, or protection. The rhythm of the dances, synchronized with drums and songs, breathed life into the mask, and for the participants, it was a profound experience to see, hear, and feel the ancestors speak through form, motion, and shadow. Yet the mask story is not only about ceremonial use, it is also a tale of secrecy and survival. As colonial forces spread across Africa, many sacred objects were seized, destroyed, or hidden to preserve their sanctity. Some masks were buried in secret locations, passed down through family lines, or concealed in places of worship, only to emerge generations later, carrying the weight of centuries of untold stories. Those who possessed the mask understood that it was not merely a historical artifact, it was alive, in a sense, and it demanded respect, humility, and reverence. To display it carelessly was thought to invite misfortune, whereas to honor it could bring guidance, insight, and connection with the sacred. Even in the modern era, the allure of the mask persists. Contemporary Yoruba artisans continue to craft ritual masks, guided by traditions that trace back centuries, blending spiritual intent with artistic mastery. Museums that house original masks display them as cultural treasures, yet often they cannot convey the full experience of seeing the mask in motion, of hearing the rhythm that animates it, of feeling the presence of shadows that seem to speak directly to one's intuition. The mask that sang shadows is not just an artifact, it is an encounter, an experience that transcends time, place, and language. Consider the metaphor embedded in its design. Shadows, while fleeting and elusive, are inseparable from the presence of light. The mask captures this duality, teaching a lesson that is at once practical and spiritual. For understanding, guidance, and wisdom, one must recognize both what is revealed and what is hidden. In the same way, the mask itself is an object of duality. It is at once a creation of human hands and a vessel of divine presence, a work of art and a living conduit, a symbol and a medium. Its legacy lies not only in its craftsmanship, but in its ability to remind those who encounter it that the world is layered, complex, and rich with unseen dimensions. To imagine the mask in its original context is to step into a world where the living and the spiritual intersect constantly. Picture a moonlit night in a Yoruba village, drums echoing through the forest, dancers weaving intricate patterns through torchlight. The mask glints and shadows twist across the walls, revealing forms that suggest ancestors, animals, and mythic beings. Observers might feel a shiver of recognition, a sense of knowing that cannot be articulated. The mask does not tell them explicitly what to see. It evokes understanding, reflection, and connection. It is a teacher, a guide, and a mirror of the unseen, holding the rhythm of generations in its carved and adorned form. As the centuries passed, the mask became a symbol of resilience. Even when rituals were interrupted, when knowledge was threatened with erasure, when empires rose and fell, the mask persisted. It remained a touchstone, a reminder of the depth of Yoruba culture, the sanctity of their spiritual practices, and the power of objects imbued with intentionality and reverence. Those who encounter it today are not merely viewing a historical object, They are stepping into a continuum of experience, a narrative that spans centuries, connecting the past with the present, and even inviting speculation about the future. The mask's enduring power lies in its ability to evoke imagination and reverence. It challenges modern viewers to perceive beyond the material, to recognize that an object can carry energy, history, and spirit. Each curve, each hollow eye, each shadow it casts serves as a link in a chain that binds generations, a thread that traces the lineage of beliefs, values, and artistry. To touch it, even in thought, is to bridge worlds, to hear the muted songs of ancestors, to feel the pulse of rituals performed under the same moon and stars that watched over them centuries ago. Even in isolation, outside its original ceremonial context, the mask radiates meaning. Scholars, collectors, and enthusiasts find themselves drawn to its intricate carvings, its symbolic patterns, and the enigmatic presence it conveys. Its story is an invitation to reflect on the relationship between the seen and unseen, the tangible and the spiritual, the fleeting moment and the enduring legacy. It reminds us that human creativity, when guided by reverence and understanding, can create objects that are not simply utilitarian or ornamental, but alive in essence, resonant with energy that transcends generations. The mask that sang shadows is more than an artifact of the past. It is a living lesson, a testament to the Yoruba people's understanding of their world, and an enduring symbol of the power of ritual, artistry, and intention. In every flicker of imagined torchlight, in every imagined shadow stretching across the walls, in every imagined heartbeat of the drums that once accompanied it, the mask continues to speak, quietly, profoundly, and eternally. It teaches patience, respect, and the appreciation of layers, of depth, and of the unseen forces that shape human experience. The mask, in its silent song, reminds us that history is not only written in words, but carved in wood, sung in shadows, and carried through time by those who honor it. The lamp that ate shadows. In the heart of the ancient city of Constantinople, where the streets once thrummed with the footsteps of merchants, soldiers, and scholars, there existed a small, unassuming lamp, forged from bronze in a time when the city's golden age was at its peak. This lamp, unlike any ordinary vessel for light, had a peculiar and almost mystical reputation. It was said to consume shadows, drawing them into its quiet hollow, in a manner that no one could fully explain. Scholars and common folk alike spoke of it in whispers, sharing tales of shadows disappearing, leaving the spaces around the lamp eerily illuminated, as if the darkness itself had been devoured. The lamp's bronze surface was aged and worn, yet it bore intricate etchings that suggested more than mere decoration. Spirals and geometric patterns wove across its body, and there, subtly, a depiction of a crescent moon cradling a flame hinted at a purpose beyond simple illumination. Some claimed that the lamp had been created during the reign of a Byzantine emperor whose fascination with alchemy and the metaphysical was well known, a ruler who sought artifacts that could bend the very fabric of perception. Others believed it had been a temple offering, consecrated to unseen deities who walked silently among mortals, guiding them, testing them, and sometimes taking what was theirs without warning. As the city evolved, the lamp moved quietly from palace to palace, from shrine to private collection, rarely seen but always remembered. It was said that in rooms where the lamp rested, shadows behaved differently, elongating unnaturally, sometimes resisting the natural path of light and refusing to fall where they should. Scholars of Constantinople documented such anomalies with growing concern, noting that the lamp influence was subtle yet persistent. Those who studied it up close reported an almost imperceptible hum, a vibration in the air that seemed to respond to the presence of darkness itself. Some claimed that if you stared at the lamp long enough in dim light, you could see faint silhouettes curling inward, as though the shadows were being absorbed, leaving a light untouched by any physical flame. The lamp's journey through history was as shadowed as the darkness it was said to consume. During sieges and invasions, it vanished from records, only to reappear centuries later, carried by travelers or discovered hidden in the dusty corners of old monasteries. Its bronze surface would often be coated in the soot and dust of neglect, yet the strange patterns remained clear, and occasionally faint traces of darkness would cling to its form, shimmering like a second, silent flame. In quiet rooms, scholars and priests alike recorded their observations, describing shadows that moved against the rules of geometry, and noting the unsettling sensation that someone or something was watching, just beyond the edge of perception. Local legends embellished the lamp's story. Some claimed that if a person dared to place a candle beside it and watched as the flame danced, their own shadow would shrink and twist, crawling into the lamp, leaving only an empty silhouette where a body had stood moments before. Others whispered that the lamp could hold the grief of the living, the fears of children, or the unspoken secrets of lovers who had passed away. In this way, it became not merely an object of light, but a vessel of experience, collecting pieces of life itself within its small, unassuming body. By the late Byzantine period, the lamp had inspired fear and awe in equal measure. Monks chronicled its movements from church to church, scribes wrote of the peculiar absence of darkness where the lamp rested, and merchants told travelers of a lantern that could eat shadows. Some argued it was a creation of divine artisans, a tool meant to keep watch over the city, while others suggested a darker origin, that it had been forged with forbidden knowledge, an artifact born from the boundary between light and shadow, life and death. The lamp survived centuries of turmoil, from the fall of Constantinople to the establishment of new empires on its ruins. Its form endured, and so did the tales of its powers. When scholars in later centuries examined it, now housed in private collections or occasionally displayed in museums, they observed what seemed impossible. In photographs taken by candlelight, shadows behaved erratically, refusing to align with the laws of perspective. Visitors reported feelings of unease, as if the darkness in the room had been partially removed, yet they could sense its presence somewhere, coiled in the corners, waiting. It was this persistent mystery that fascinated historians, artists, and mystics alike. The lamp was more than a piece of bronze, it was a living record of perception, a silent observer of the world, and a reminder that the ordinary rules of existence were not always consistent. Every scratch, every indentation on its surface, told a story of centuries of hands holding it, of prayers whispered in its presence, and of darkness that had been consumed, leaving only light behind. As modern researchers attempted to replicate the phenomenon, they found themselves confounded. Laboratories could produce shadows, move them, and manipulate them with lenses or mirrors, but nothing matched the subtle, almost sentient behavior of the lamp. Tests revealed no hidden sources of light or mechanisms. The bronze itself emitted no heat, no power, no energy that could explain its effects. Yet when left in a darkened room, with nothing but the lamp and a single candle, shadows seemed to shrink, twist, and vanish in a manner that could not be rationally explained. And so the lamp became not merely a historical curiosity, but a philosophical question, a challenge to understanding the nature of light, perception, and the unseen forces that may linger in the spaces around us. Artists sketched it obsessively, attempting to capture not just its form but the intangible sensation it evoked. Writers filled pages with stories, some portraying it as a protective talisman, others as a cursed object that demanded a price from those who dared gaze too long. Its legend grew, intertwining with the mythology of Constantinople itself, becoming inseparable from the city's identity and history. Even today, the lamp is an enigma. When displayed in controlled environments, it draws visitors in, their curiosity piqued by centuries of stories. Scholars present the facts, but the anecdotal experiences continue. Shadows misbehave. Faint whispers seem to echo in quiet halls, and the air feels charged with the remnants of countless generations who have stood in its presence. The lamp remains a silent observer, a piece of metal imbued with mysteries that defy explanation, quietly consuming darkness, leaving light behind, and reminding the world that some secrets can never truly be understood, only experienced. The sarcophagus that whispered stories. Long ago, in the region now known as Turkey, in the bustling ancient city of Antakya, there lay a sarcophagus that would one day challenge the boundaries of history, myth, and imagination. Unlike any ordinary burial stone, this sarcophagus carried within its cold marble walls the whispers of centuries, the secrets of lives long departed, and the weight of stories that time had tried, and largely failed to erase. Its surface, carefully carved and meticulously painted, bore images that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles, as if the figures trapped in its stone were moving, alive, and waiting to tell their tales to anyone patient enough to listen. The sarcophagus itself was massive, hewn from a single block of marble, imported from the nearby quarries that had supplied the palaces and temples of the region. It was built for someone of immense importance, likely a member of the city's ruling elite, but no inscription definitively confirmed the identity of the one entombed within. Archaeologists, historians, and scholars who studied it for decades have argued over every detail: the intricate carvings along the sides, the symbols etched into the lid, the scenes of daily life, the figures in ceremonial garb, and even the subtle expressions on the faces of the sculpted attendants. But what made this sarcophagus truly unique was not merely its artistry. It was the sense that it had a consciousness of its own, a silent observer embedded in marble. Those who have come close to it, whether in museums or in situ in ancient ruins, speak of an uncanny sensation, a feeling that the sarcophagus watched them, that the eyes of its carved figures followed them across the room. Scholars, ever cautious in their terminology, have described this as a trick of perspective or the natural effect of light on polished stone. Yet countless visitors, independent of one another, have insisted that there was more than mere optics at play. The history of the sarcophagus stretches back to the early centuries of the Common Era, when Antakya, known in antiquity as Antioch, was a vital hub of trade, culture, and religion. Positioned at the crossroads between the East and West, Antioch was a city where cultures collided, blended, and influenced one another. The sarcophagus reflects this multiplicity. Its carvings are a symphony of Greco-Roman technique fused with Eastern motifs. Stylized floral patterns, geometric designs, and faint hints of Persian and Mesopotamian symbolism all converge on its surface. One can trace the trade routes and cultural exchanges of the ancient world simply by studying the artistic choices made by the sculptor of this singular monument. The lid of the sarcophagus bears the most haunting imagery, a reclining figure, serene yet regal, whose gaze seems outward, beyond the confines of the stone, beyond the mortal world. Surrounding this central figure are attendants in various poses of mourning and reverence. Each attendant carries a symbolic object, a scroll, a vessel, a small musical instrument, or a ceremonial garb. These objects are not random. They are carefully chosen to reflect the virtues, achievements, and spiritual status of the one interred. Some scholars have proposed that the scroll symbolizes wisdom, the vessel represents the sustenance of life, and the instruments are a metaphor for harmony between the living and the dead. Yet what has captivated researchers the most is the presence of hidden imagery, subtle carvings that seem almost invisible unless illuminated at certain angles. Some depict scenes of cosmic significance, a sun rising behind distant mountains, constellations mirrored in the folds of drapery, animals in mid-leap that seem to float above the stone. The combination of naturalistic and symbolic elements creates an effect that is almost hypnotic. One could spend hours examining the sarcophagus and still discover elements unnoticed by others, as if the monument itself were encouraging perpetual study, demanding that the observer remain patient and reverent. Legends surrounding the sarcophagus are as enthralling as the artwork itself. Ancient local myths suggest that the person interred within was no ordinary citizen, but a guardian of sacred knowledge, a priest or noble tasked with protecting the city's deepest secrets. Some stories claim that at night, when the moon's light strikes the carvings in just the right way, the figures seem to move, reenacting events from the city's long history. A merchant might be seen walking across the relief, offering goods to a noble. A soldier could be frozen in the act of drawing a sword. A priest might raise an incense vessel in ritual observance. Whether these movements are optical illusions or a phenomenon yet to be explained remains a matter of debate, but they have contributed to the sarcophagus's enduring aura of mystery. Scientific examinations have revealed that the pigments once used to decorate the sarcophagus were composed of rare minerals, some of which could have been imported from distant regions. The presence of cinnabar, lapis lazuli, and other exotic materials demonstrates that the individual it commemorated was extraordinarily wealthy or well-connected. These pigments, once vibrant, have faded with centuries of exposure, yet even in their diminished state, the colors evoke a sense of life and presence. Conservators tasked with preserving the sarcophagus describe it as a living challenge. Each attempt to stabilize or restore the stone risks altering its character, diminishing the very qualities that make it enigmatic. Historians have also speculated on the symbolic significance of the sarcophagus's location. Found in a necropolis near the city's central districts, it was neither entirely hidden nor openly displayed. This placement may suggest a philosophy that the dead should be near, yet not among the living. A threshold between the realms, a liminal space where knowledge, memory, and spirit converge. Some have proposed that the sarcophagus was intentionally placed along an axis aligned with celestial phenomena. Measurements indicate that during solstices, the shadows and light interact with the carved figures in astonishingly precise ways, illuminating key symbols and highlighting certain gestures. Whether this was intentional or coincidental remains a topic of ongoing research, but the effect is undeniably captivating. The sarcophagus has survived centuries of conquest, looting, and natural disasters. Antioch endured earthquakes, fires, and invasions by numerous empires, yet this particular monument remained intact. Some attribute its survival to sheer fortune. Others whisper that it protected itself, that the marble absorbed and repelled threats in ways unknown to mortal understanding. Those who approach it often remark on the coldness of the stone, not merely a physical chill, but a presence, a weight, an awareness. The sarcophagus does not simply exist, it communicates, challenges, and commands attention. Modern technology has allowed researchers to peer inside the sarcophagus without disturbing it. Ground-penetrating radar and non-invasive imaging techniques have revealed traces of organic material, the remains of the burial itself, as well as a wealth of artifacts once interred alongside the deceased. Small jewelry, ceremonial objects, and delicate offerings hint at ritual practices and personal identity. The arrangement of these items suggests meticulous planning, an intention to convey messages not only to contemporaries but to future generations who might one day rediscover the tomb. The sarcophagus's narrative extends beyond the person it holds. It is a story of human ambition, artistry, and belief. The motifs reflect the values and fears of a civilization that understood mortality, reverence, and the power of memory. The sarcophagus becomes a mirror in which we see not just an individual but an entire society, their rituals, politics, and spiritual insights. Visitors to modern museums where fragments or replicas of the Antikythera sarcophagus are displayed often report a similar reaction to those who first discovered it centuries ago. The object commands attention without overtly demanding it, draws the eye, and holds it in contemplation. Its presence is quiet, but insistent, subtle, but profound. Every viewing can be different depending on time of day, angle of light, and the observer's own state of mind. In this way, the sarcophagus achieves a form of immortality. It is not merely a container for the dead, but a vessel for thought, reflection, and wonder. Through centuries, through empires, through the relentless march of time, the Antikythera sarcophagus continues to fascinate, to inspire, and to challenge our understanding of history. Its marble walls whisper the stories of kings, priests, traders, and artisans. They speak of lives intertwined with the fate of a city, of human ingenuity and devotion, and of mysteries that endure despite our desire to fully explain them. Even today, when scholars, tourists, and enthusiasts approach this ancient monument, there is a shared sense of awe and reverence. They are not simply looking at stone, they are engaging with history itself, with a presence that defies simple categorization, and with an artifact that seems determined to keep some secrets forever hidden. The Antikythera sarcophagus is more than a burial stone. It is a repository of memory, a testament to craftsmanship, a mirror of a city and its people, and a challenge to all who seek to comprehend the entirety of the past. It reminds us that not all stories are meant to be fully told, and that some mysteries are best left to whisper across the centuries, touching those willing to listen, and inspiring awe in those with patience to observe. To stand before the Antikythera sarcophagus is to feel the weight of history itself, the whisper of lives long gone, and the beauty of human endeavor immortalized in stone. In this silent and majestic monument, time becomes fluid, stories become tangible, and the past speaks softly, waiting for those who care to hear. The helmet that held silence. In the rolling hills and dense forests of ancient Celtic Gaul, there existed a warrior culture that revered the earth, the sky, and the spirits that lived between them. The people of this land, long before the might of Rome stretched its fingers across the continent, had a profound connection to the unseen. They believed that objects, particularly those forged for battle, could capture essence, memory, and spirit. Among the relics that have survived through time, none whispers of its past so potently as the iron helmet discovered in the remnants of a long-forgotten battlefield, a helmet whose very metal seemed to exude silence, even when the air around it trembled with history. This helmet was unlike any other, carefully forged by the hands of artisans whose knowledge of iron and ritual was inseparable. The iron itself was said to have been smelted with ores from sacred mountains, veins known to the Druids as the lifeblood of the earth. To shape it, the smiths employed hammers and tongs that had been blessed under moonlight, invoking protections and blessings that were meant to safeguard the wearer, not just in life, but in spirit. Every curve and ridge, every rivet and edge was deliberate. This was not merely a piece of armor, it was a vessel, a repository of intentions, fears, and solemn oaths. Legends suggest that such helmets were worn by the elite warriors of Gallic tribes, men and women who were both soldiers and sacred intermediaries. When one donned the helmet, it was said they could hear the quiet whisper of ancestors, a guidance that would tell them where to strike, when to hold, and how to carry themselves in the ever-present shadow of death. Those who survived battles credited the helmet with their endurance, claiming that it seemed to shield not only their heads but their minds, dampening the terror that so often overwhelmed soldiers on the field. Yet, unlike tales of invincibility, there was a subtle, almost mystical restraint. The helmet did not grant strength by itself. It demanded respect, humility, and attunement to forces beyond mortal comprehension. Archaeological evidence suggests that the helmet was used during the height of Gallic resistance against expanding empires, particularly during confrontations with Roman legions. The helmet's shape, a rounded dome with reinforced cheek guards and a pronounced ridge running from forehead to nape, was designed to deflect blows, to mitigate the chaos of close combat. But what distinguished it most was its intricate decoration. Engraved along the edges were patterns that mirrored the flowing rivers of Gaul, and the spiraling knots that represented continuity, life, and the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. Embedded within the iron were subtle inlays of bronze and tin, metals chosen not merely for aesthetics but for their symbolic resonance. These metals were believed to conduct energy, to carry the prayers and intentions of the wearer, and to harmonize the wearer's spirit with the cosmos. The helmet's discovery in modern times, buried beneath centuries of soil and memory, is almost as mysterious as its original creation. Excavators found it near the site of a hilltop fort, a strategic location overlooking a winding river that had once served as a natural boundary and battlefield. Its position suggested ceremonial placement rather than simple abandonment. Surrounding it were fragments of weapons, shards of pottery, and traces of what appeared to be ritual offerings, burned herbs, animal bones, and small figurines. The helmet lay on its side, its interior still lined with traces of leather and fabric, remnants of a long decomposed headpiece that had once ensured comfort, though comfort seemed a distant notion in the brutal world it belonged to. Upon examination, metallurgists discovered the iron was of unusually high quality, far superior to what might be expected from ordinary Celtic forges. This implied that the helmet was intended for someone of immense status, a chieftain or a revered warrior, whose very survival and conduct were matters of communal importance. The surface, despite centuries underground, retained an almost tangible resonance. When tapped lightly, it produced a faint, reverberating hum, a sound that some researchers have likened to a whispered echo. Perhaps this is why it has come to be known as the helmet that held silence, for in its presence, the world seemed to pause, and the air itself felt charged with memory. The helmet also bears subtle signs of repairs and reinforcements, indicating that it was not merely ceremonial, but saw repeated action. Each dent and scratch tells a story: the glancing blow from a Roman gladius, the impact of a thrown spear, the narrow miss of an enemy axe. Yet despite the violence it endured, the helmet remained remarkably intact, as if the intent of its makers and the spirits invoked within it had preserved it. It becomes evident that the helmet was considered more than protection. It was a covenant. The wearer's courage, discipline, and respect for tradition were entwined with the iron itself, creating a bond that could not easily be broken. Oral histories of Gallic tribes recount similar items, describing helmets imbued with consciousness, capable of guiding the wearer through moments of mortal peril. It was said that in battle, the helmet would muffle distractions, fears, and the overwhelming chaos that befell ordinary soldiers. Those who wore it could focus entirely on their duty, on the rhythm of combat, and on the unspoken communication between allies. Some stories even claim the helmet could absorb the anguish and fury of battle, keeping the warrior's mind clear, while carrying the weight of what the world called noise, an unseen burden, yet one that could tip the balance between life and death. The helmet's symbolism extended beyond the battlefield. In ceremonial contexts, it was worn during oaths of loyalty, religious observances, and tribal gatherings. Its presence signified authority, wisdom, and divine favor. Leaders wearing such helmets would stand before their people, proclaiming decrees or engaging in ritualized combat, with the knowledge that the metal encased not just their head, but their intentions, their honor, and their connection to the gods. This duality, practical in warfare, yet sacred in ceremony, underscores the depth of Celtic craftsmanship and belief. To them, objects could carry power not only through physical form, but through ritual, belief, and the respect granted by those who interacted with them. Interestingly, microscopic analysis of the iron reveals traces of organic materials embedded within the alloy, substances that likely served ritual purposes. Residues of resin, plant extracts, and even traces of blood were found, suggesting that the forging process was accompanied by ceremonial acts. It is as if the helmet was baptized in intention. Each layer of metal, intertwined with layers of devotion, a tangible link between the physical and the spiritual. This may explain the helmet's remarkable preservation. It was treated not merely as an object, but as a living entity, worthy of care, reverence, and protection. The helmet's aesthetic choices further reinforce its dual purpose. Its form is simultaneously aggressive and elegant. The lines convey motion, speed, and decisiveness. The engravings evoke natural forms, windswept trees, flowing rivers, celestial spirals, connecting the warrior to the landscape and cosmos. Cheek guards carved with symbolic motifs hint at protective spirits. While the ridge along the crown was more than structural, it served as a channel, directing energy and focus toward the mind. Such considerations demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of psychology and belief, revealing a culture where the boundary between craftsmanship, magic, and martial science was fluid. As time passed and Roman conquest spread across Gaul, the helmet would have witnessed dramatic changes. The warrior who once wore it may have fallen in combat, or perhaps survived to see the end of independent Gaulish tribes, their territories absorbed into a vast empire. Yet, even as political and social structures changed, the helmet endured, a silent witness to history. Its continued existence reminds us that objects can outlive the lives they protect and the empires that rise and fall around them. Its iron seems to have absorbed not only the blows of battle, but the very essence of a people's spirit, a testimony to resilience, craft, and devotion. Modern fascination with the helmet lies not only in its craftsmanship, but in what it represents, the interplay of mortality and memory, of physical necessity and spiritual belief. Scholars have studied it extensively, attempting to reconstruct the methods of its forging, the rituals surrounding its use, and the lives of those who wore it. Each discovery opens new questions. How did the Celts conceive of mental clarity and spiritual protection in objects? How did artisans combine metallurgy and ritual to produce an artifact that could endure both physically and symbolically? What does the helmet teach us about the worldview of a culture often overshadowed by the legacies of Rome and Greece? Visitors to the museum where the helmet resides today often describe a sense of awe, a quiet, almost reverential stillness when standing before it. Some claim they feel a presence, a subtle energy that speaks of unseen worlds, of ancestors watching, of wisdom contained in iron. The helmet is not merely an artifact but a bridge across time, connecting us to those who lived, fought, and prayed centuries before. Its ability to evoke silence and reflection is perhaps its most remarkable feature, an enduring reminder that history is not only what we read in texts, but what resonates in the objects left behind. The iron itself has inspired metallurgists, historians, and artists. Its composition, durability, and design suggest techniques far ahead of their time, and yet perfectly suited to the needs of the era. Its story is not just one of battle, it is of connection, identity, belief, and the human desire to leave something behind that can speak long after the voice of its creator has faded. Every dent, scratch, and burnish mark serves as a wordless sentence, conveying the struggles, victories, fears, and reverence of those who interacted with it. In conclusion, the iron helmet of Celtic Gaul is far more than a piece of armor. It is a testament to human ingenuity, spiritual insight, and the enduring power of material culture. It holds silence, yes, but in that silence it carries the echoes of history, the whispers of ancestors, the strategies of warriors, and the artistry of smiths who understood that to create something eternal, one must forge it with purpose, reverence, and an understanding that the boundary between the mundane and the sacred is often more porous than we dare to imagine. As it rests today, preserved and admired, the helmet continues to teach us, not through spoken words but through its presence, that some secrets are best communicated in silence, and some of history's most profound truths lie not in records or chronicles, but in the objects that have carried their legacy across centuries. The statue that followed eyes. In the heart of ancient Athens, amidst the bustling agora, sacred temples, and quiet workshops tucked between narrow streets, there existed a sculptural tradition that sought to capture not merely the human form but the soul itself. Among the many statues that have survived the ravages of time, wars, and natural decay, one marble figure has captivated historians, archaeologists, and mystics alike for centuries, earning a reputation that defies rational explanation. Known today as the statue that followed eyes, this creation seems to possess a consciousness of its own, a silent awareness that has haunted its observers through generations. Carved from pristine white marble, quarried from the slopes of Mount Pentelicus, the statue exemplifies the skill of classical Greek sculptors who, at the height of Athenian civilization, had mastered the delicate balance between realism and idealism. Every muscle, tendon, and curve is rendered with meticulous precision, yet it is not the anatomical fidelity alone that draws attention. The eyes, carved with extraordinary depth and subtle asymmetry, seem to possess a presence, a quality that compels those who approach it to feel as though they are under scrutiny. From any angle within the room, the eyes appear to follow the viewer, not merely by coincidence of perspective but by an uncanny interplay of light, shadow, and artistry that has been described as almost supernatural. The origins of the statue remain shrouded in mystery. Scholars have debated its exact date of creation, though stylistic analysis places it firmly in the late classical period of Athens, around the 4th century BCE. It is believed to have been commissioned for a prominent temple or public space, perhaps to honor a deity or a distinguished citizen. The choice of marble itself speaks to the significance of the commission. Pentelic marble was reserved for works of exceptional prestige, prized for its fine grain, luminosity, and ability to hold intricate detail. It was said that the Greeks believed marble could capture the essence of life when shaped by the right hands, and in this case, it seems they were not mistaken. Ancient texts make oblique reference to statues with watchful eyes, often within religious or philosophical contexts. The philosopher Plato, in his dialogues, mused upon the nature of perception, suggesting that art could mirror the soul in a way that challenges human understanding. In this light, the statue may have been more than an aesthetic object. It could have served as a silent guardian, a reminder to all who passed by that their actions were observed by forces greater than themselves. Whether viewed in the sunlight of the Athenian afternoon, or by flickering torchlight within a temple, the effect remained consistent. The figure's gaze seemed ever aware, tracking movement with an intelligence that unsettled even the most disciplined of citizens. The sculptor's technique is part of what makes this phenomenon so remarkable. By subtly angling the irises and carving minute contours around the eyelids, the artist created an optical illusion that interacts dynamically with the observer's perspective. In combination with the polished surface of the marble, which reflects light in ways that shift with the viewer's position, the result is a perception of movement. Eyes that seem fixed when seen from one vantage suddenly align with the observer as they move across the room. The effect is enhanced by the statue's naturalistic pose, a slight twist of the torso, a measured tilt of the head, and delicately balanced weight that suggests life in stasis. These elements together evoke a sense of awareness that feels almost deliberate, as though the statue is not merely a representation of human form but a participant in the world it inhabits. Legends surrounding the statue abound. Ancient Athenian citizens whispered that those who spent prolonged periods in its presence would find themselves compelled to self-reflect. Traders and philosophers alike spoke of a strange calm, a mixture of reverence and unease, that settled over the viewer. Some claim to have seen their expressions mirrored in the marble itself, a phenomenon that scholars have linked to the uncanny resonance between human perception and highly detailed sculpture. Others told tales of more extraordinary occurrences: objects displaced, faint whispers in the temple corridors, or shadows that seemed to linger near the statue, even after the sun had set. While these accounts are difficult to verify, they contribute to the enduring mystique of the work. The statue's history is punctuated by periods of upheaval. During the Roman conquest of Greece, many temples and public spaces were repurposed or destroyed, yet the figure survived, often moved to private collections or hidden alcoves to protect it from desecration. Each relocation carried with it a sense of solemnity, for it was not merely marble that was being transported, but centuries of accumulated presence, a silent observer of humanity's triumphs and follies. In modern times, it has found a place within museum halls, where its gaze continues to draw attention, inspiring scholars, artists, and casual visitors alike. Those who study it note that even in sterile exhibition lighting, the illusion persists, a testament to the enduring mastery of its creator. Scientific examinations have sought to understand why the statue's eyes appear to follow observers. Detailed measurements of geometry, angles, and reflective properties of the marble have confirmed that the effect is largely optical, yet it is not purely mechanical. The human mind plays a crucial role in perceiving the statue's watchfulness, filling in subtle cues with expectation and awareness. In this way, the statue exists in a liminal space between physical artifact and psychological phenomenon. It embodies the interplay between material reality and perceptual experience, a concept that resonates deeply with modern cognitive science and art theory. The cultural significance of such statues in ancient Athens cannot be overstated. In a society that prized civic duty, philosophy, and public morality, objects that conveyed vigilance and awareness were potent symbols. The statue may have functioned as a moral compass, reminding citizens that their actions carried consequences beyond the immediate and visible. Its presence could subtly influence behavior, encouraging honesty, diligence, and reverence for the divine and communal order. In this sense, the statue's ability to follow eyes is more than an artistic flourish. It is a manifestation of societal values encoded in stone. Furthermore, the statue represents a convergence of multiple disciplines: art, philosophy, religion, and psychology. The sculptor's understanding of human perception, coupled with religious belief in the animacy of sacred objects, produced a work that transcends mere ornamentation. Every inch of marble carries intention, from the curvature of the cheeks to the delicate carving of eyelids, down to the subtle asymmetries that give the impression of a living gaze. The interplay of these details with light, shadow, and spatial dynamics demonstrates a level of sophistication that challenges contemporary notions of craftsmanship and psychological insight. Visitors to Athens today, when encountering the statue in museums or reconstructions, often report a mixture of fascination and unease. There is an instinctive response to being watched, even by an inanimate object, that taps into deep evolutionary and cultural wiring. The effect is intensified by the statue's serene yet commanding presence. It does not threaten, nor does it overtly challenge, but its awareness is palpable. Scholars have noted that individuals unconsciously adjust their posture, tone, and behavior in its presence, a subtle testament to the power of observation encoded in art. Legends also describe the statue interacting with its environment in ways that seem almost supernatural. In stories passed down through centuries, temple attendants recounted that torches flickered more strongly when one approached the statue, or that the sounds of the city outside seemed to soften within its proximity. These anecdotal accounts, while unverifiable, enhance the sense of mystery and provide insight into how ancient peoples understood their relationship with sacred objects. The statue was not merely a representation of a deity or idealized human form. It was a participant in the spiritual and social life of Athens, an active presence in the moral and cultural fabric of the city. The marble itself, quarried from Pentelicus, contains subtle veining that, when illuminated, appears to animate the surface. Combined with the optical illusions of the eyes, the result is a continuous dialogue between observer and object. Each person who gazes upon the statue perceives a slightly different experience, influenced by perspective, lighting, and emotional state. In this way, the statue is not static but dynamic, existing in a state of perpetual interaction with those who approach it, and perhaps with those who pass beyond its direct observation as well. For historians, the statue serves as a bridge to the past, revealing insights into ancient Greek art, religion, and social psychology. For artists, it is an example of the power of meticulous craftsmanship to evoke emotion, narrative, and engagement. For visitors, it is a reminder of the depth of human creativity and the ways in which art can transcend time, reaching across centuries to communicate presence, awareness, and perhaps even something akin to consciousness. It remains a subject of fascination, debate, and admiration because it embodies the delicate interplay between form and perception, matter and mind, artist and audience. Ultimately, the marble statue that follows eyes is more than a historical artifact. It is a meditation on observation, perception, and the human desire to connect with the unseen. It reminds us that the act of being seen, whether by a god, a community, or a work of art, shapes behavior, evokes reflection, and inspires awe. It is an enduring testament to the ingenuity of ancient sculptors who understood that true mastery is not only in replicating the human form, but in capturing an essence that continues to resonate through the millennia. Even after centuries of displacement, wars, and the slow erosion of time, the statue endures. Its gaze remains, patient and unyielding, silently observing those who approach it, carrying with it the legacy of a civilization that revered intellect, artistry, and the unseen. To stand before it is to enter a dialogue that transcends words, a communion between the present and the past, a quiet testament to the power of creation, perception, and enduring human fascination. The statue teaches that even stone can hold life and perception, that even cold marble can embody vigilance, and that artistry can evoke the sublime. In every curve, every shadowed crease, and every faint glimmer in its eyes, it holds centuries of stories, watching, guiding, and silently reminding us that some things in history are alive not through breath, but through attention, perception, and the silent weight of human engagement. It continues to challenge, inspire, and captivate, ensuring that while civilizations rise and fall, the watchful presence of this statue endures, a sentinel of memory, artistry, and eternal observation. The drum that captured sunlight. In the rolling grasslands of the Zulu kingdom, where the sun rises with a brilliance that seems almost sacred, and the winds carry the whispers of ancestors across the hills, there exists an artifact that has fascinated historians, anthropologists, and spiritual seekers alike for generations. Known as the drum that captured sunlight, this ritual instrument is more than a tool for music. It is a vessel of energy, history, and mystique, imbued with stories that echo across time. Its very existence suggests a civilization that understood not only the rhythms of life, but the interplay of sound, light, and spiritual resonance in ways that continue to astonish us today. Carved from a single piece of hardwood, meticulously selected for its density, resonance, and spiritual significance, the drum bears the unmistakable mark of Zulu craftsmanship at its height. The artisans of the Zulu kingdom were revered not only for their skill in shaping stone and wood, but for their ability to imbue objects with symbolic and functional power. Each curve, each taut stretch of the drumhead, was deliberately designed to produce tones that mimic the heartbeat of the earth, the rustle of the savanna grasses, and the hum of the sunlit air at dawn. It was believed that through this instrument, one could summon the energy of the sun itself, channeling light, warmth, and vitality into the rituals of the people. Historical records and oral traditions both speak of the drum's remarkable origins. Passed down through generations of royal and spiritual lineages, it was often present at coronations, rites of passage, and seasonal festivals. Its tones were considered to carry messages to the spirits of the ancestors, calling upon guidance, protection, and blessings. During ceremonies, the drum's resonant sound would fill the open spaces of the Zulu plains, traveling across valleys and hills, vibrating in harmony with the natural rhythms of the world. Observers spoke of an almost tangible energy emanating from its surface, a warm luminescence that seemed to accompany the vibrations of each beat, as though the drum itself had absorbed the sunlight and released it in a chorus of auditory brilliance. The construction of the drum was itself a ritual. The wood was carefully harvested at specific times of the year, under the guidance of elders who understood the sacred timing of natural cycles. Once selected, the piece of hardwood was shaped and hollowed, using methods passed down through centuries, combining precision with intuition. Animal hides, often from species considered spiritually potent, were stretched across the drumhead, treated with natural resins and oils to enhance resonance, durability, and symbolic potency. The finishing touches, incisions, carvings, and painted motifs were not merely decorative. They were designed to channel spiritual energy, to encode cultural narratives, and to create a dialogue between the drum, its musician, and the cosmos. Anthropologists studying the drum note its unique acoustic qualities. Unlike other drums of its time, this instrument produces a harmonic complexity that mirrors the tonal fluctuations of sunlight across the savanna. When struck, its sound seems to carry a brightness, a clarity that is not merely perceived by the ear but felt throughout the body. Elders recount that the first strike of the drum at sunrise could influence the mood of the entire village, invigorating warriors, inspiring dancers, and calming those in mourning. Such stories suggest that the drum functioned as a conduit, a bridge between the physical and spiritual, between human perception and the forces of nature. Legends surrounding the drum abound, many of which speak to its mystical properties. It is said that during moments of crisis, when drought threatened the fields or enemies approached the kingdom's borders, the drum was played in ceremonial rhythm to summon the protective power of the sun. Some accounts describe the surface of the drum glowing faintly in sunlight, as if it had absorbed the light of dawn itself. Others recount that even when played in moonlight or shade, the tonal richness seemed to retain a solar warmth, a persistent reminder of its connection to the celestial body that governs day and life. The drum's role in society extended beyond ceremony and spirituality. It was also a communicator, a transmitter of information across distances. In a culture without written language as its primary medium, rhythmic signals conveyed messages, warnings, and instructions. The drum could announce the beginning of festivals, the arrival of dignitaries, or the mobilization of warriors. Each pattern, each combination of beats, held a codified meaning, understood by those trained to interpret them. This dual function, both mystical and practical, underscores the drum's extraordinary significance. It was simultaneously a sacred object and a tool of societal organization, linking the human and divine, the communal and personal. Modern studies have explored the drum's construction and acoustic properties in detail, seeking to understand how ancient artisans achieved such a remarkable effect. High-precision measurements reveal that the selection of wood, the thickness of the drumhead, and even the specific tension applied during its crafting all contribute to a resonance that amplifies both sound and perceived energy. When played, the vibrations do not merely travel through air, they interact with the surrounding environment, subtly influencing the perception of space, light, and emotional state. These findings suggest that the drum was not merely symbolic but a functional device designed to manipulate energy in a way that ancient Zulu culture understood intuitively. Despite centuries of political upheaval, colonial interference, and cultural shifts, the drum has endured, preserved by those who recognized its value as both artifact and living memory. Today it is housed in museums and studied by scholars, yet its legacy continues to resonate in the villages and plains where its ancestors first created it. Contemporary Zulu musicians and ritual practitioners still honor the drum's traditions, acknowledging that its power lies not solely in the physical instrument but in the cumulative knowledge, ritual, and respect passed down through generations. Each performance, whether in ceremonial context or in cultural preservation, invokes the same connection to the sun, the earth, and the ancestral spirits that guided its creation. Visitors to the drum, whether in person or through documentation, often report a sense of awe and reverence. There is a subtle but unmistakable sensation that the drum is more than wood and hide. It is a repository of sunlight, energy, and history. The listener may feel warmth in the room, a lightness in spirit, or even a faint glow in perception that seems to emanate from the very object. This psychological and emotional effect mirrors the experiences described in oral traditions, suggesting that the drum's impact is both physical and metaphysical, a rare convergence that few artifacts can claim. In reflecting on the drum that captured sunlight, one begins to understand the depth of human ingenuity and spiritual understanding in the Zulu kingdom. The artisans, musicians, and spiritual leaders were not merely creating music. They were harnessing natural forces, encoding cultural memory, and crafting objects that bridge the tangible and intangible. The drum embodies a worldview in which sound, light, and human intent are intertwined, demonstrating an early understanding of resonance, energy, and the human capacity to perceive and influence the world beyond the ordinary. Ultimately, the drum's story is one of continuity, resilience, and wonder. It reminds us that objects can carry the imprint of civilizations long past, that they can hold power, memory, and meaning across centuries. It challenges modern observers to consider the ways in which sound, ritual, and craftsmanship intersect, and it invites us to contemplate the relationship between human creativity and the natural world. The drum that captured sunlight is not merely an artifact, it is a living testament to the genius of its makers, a resonant bridge connecting past, present, and the eternal rhythms of the earth and sky. In standing before the drum, one is reminded of the unity of sensory experience and spiritual awareness. The vibrations, the light, the weight of history, they all converge to create an encounter that is at once sensory, emotional, and cognitive. It is an experience that cannot be fully captured in text, but its essence persists in the rhythm of thought, in the imagination of those who hear its story, and in the continuing reverence of the cultures that birthed it. To witness it is to be reminded that some objects, like this drum, do not merely exist, they live, resonate, and carry the sun's light in ways that speak directly to the human soul. The coin that sang spells. In the sun-baked ruins of ancient Carthage, where the wind whispers over crumbling walls and the scent of salt from the nearby Mediterranean drifts across the sands, there exists a small, unassuming artifact whose power and history have captivated generations of scholars, treasure hunters, and mystics alike. This is no ordinary coin. Unlike the currency that merely facilitated trade and commerce, this coin is said to carry the resonance of spells, a tangible echo of rituals performed centuries ago. Crafted in an era when Carthage was a thriving hub of commerce, culture, and esoteric practice, it bears an intricate design, both symbolic and arcane, that speaks to a civilization that understood the subtle intersection of economy, ritual, and magic. The coin is made from a dense golden alloy that has remarkably resisted the corrosion of time, retaining a faint warmth that seems almost alive to the touch. Ancient inscriptions, barely legible to the untrained eye, wrap around its circumference in patterns that suggest more than decoration. They are the language of power, the silent syllables of incantations, designed to store energy within the very metal. Archaeologists have long debated whether the coin was purely ceremonial, or if it functioned as a conduit, a focus for magical intent, capable of influencing fortune, health, and even the unseen realms beyond human perception. Local legends recount that this coin was used in rituals to ensure the favor of the gods, to protect traders from the treacheries of the sea, and to summon blessings upon entire households. The creation of the coin was a process shrouded in secrecy and symbolism. Artisans, who were likely both metallurgists and mystics, selected the metal during specific lunar phases, believing that the alignment of the moon could imbue the coin with an enduring resonance. Once forged, the coin was inscribed with sigils and symbols that encoded prayers, charms, and spells. Every groove and ridge, every raised figure, served a dual purpose, functional as currency and mystical as a talisman. It is said that the energy of the artisan's intent became locked within the coin's core, so that even centuries later, the object still carried an echo of the rituals performed during its creation. Accounts from ancient texts hint at the coin's powers. Merchants spoke of wallets that contained such coins never going empty, of exchanges that seemed to favor the holder, of decisions made in their presence that inexplicably succeeded. Priests and magicians, however, warned that mishandling the coin could bring misfortune. They described incidents where those who took it without proper ritual or attempted to use it for selfish gain suffered sudden illness, loss, or misfortune. It was a reminder that the coin's magic was not a simple blessing but a complex living force responsive to intent, respect, and the natural rhythms of the world. Modern studies of the coin, combining metallurgy, archaeology, and ethnography, have revealed fascinating details. The alloy's composition is unlike anything common in the region at the time, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of metalworking, possibly with influences from distant Mediterranean cultures. Even more remarkable is the way its surface interacts with light. Under certain conditions, the coin appears to shimmer in patterns that seem to shift subtly with the observer's perspective. Whether this is the result of masterful craftsmanship, oxidation, or a deliberate technique lost to time, it creates an effect that has been interpreted as a visual echo of its supposed spellcasting properties. Stories passed down in Carthaginian tradition speak of entire families safeguarded by these coins. Mothers would place one in the cradle of a newborn, merchants would keep one in their coin purses, and warriors would carry them into battle. These small objects were considered extensions of spiritual protection, channels through which divine favor could flow, and reminders that even the most mundane aspects of life, trade, money, daily survival, were inseparable from the sacred and mystical. The coin, humble in size, was monumental in its perceived significance, symbolizing both the tangible wealth of a civilization and the intangible power that underpinned it. As centuries passed, Carthage fell to conquest and destruction, yet the coin survived, buried beneath layers of history, waiting silently for discovery. When archaeologists unearthed it, they were struck not merely by its preservation, but by the aura of energy that seemed to surround it. Scholars described an inexplicable warmth in the room, a subtle shift in atmosphere, when the coin was examined, as if it carried forward an imprint of all the hands, prayers, and rituals it had passed through. It became clear that this was an object that transcended time, bridging the ancient and modern worlds through its very presence. Collectors, historians, and spiritual practitioners have all sought to study the coin, each interpreting its significance differently. Some view it as a remarkable example of Carthaginian craftsmanship, a testament to the artistry and skill of a lost civilization. Others insist that the coin retains a mystical resonance, a living connection to the ancient rituals and the spiritual consciousness of the people who created it. Attempts to unlock its power, whether through careful analysis or ritual, have yielded no definitive results, leaving the coin as enigmatic as the civilization that produced it. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of the coin is its silent storytelling. Though small, it is laden with history, tales of trade, worship, political intrigue, and spiritual practice. Its surface, worn by time, yet intricately detailed, captures the essence of a culture that saw no boundary between the mundane and the sacred. Every glance at the coin offers a window into the lives of those who touched it, those who depended on it, and those who imbued it with intent. It is a bridge across millennia, a reminder that even the simplest objects, coins, tools, or trinkets, can carry profound meaning when shaped by a civilization attuned to both the material and spiritual worlds. The coin continues to inspire awe today, not just for its craftsmanship or historical significance, but for the subtle energy it is believed to hold. Visitors to museums where it is displayed often report a peculiar sensation, a feeling of lightness, warmth, or awareness that cannot be easily explained. Whether one attributes this to psychology, residual spiritual energy, or the sheer magnetism of history, it is undeniable that the coin commands attention, respect, and curiosity. It is a silent teacher, a reminder that power and mystery often reside in objects far smaller than we imagine, waiting patiently to reveal their secrets. In examining the coin closely, one notices the harmony between form, function, and meaning. The inscriptions, carefully etched, convey messages that transcend language, creating a dialogue between past and present. The balance of weight and shape reflects both usability as currency and symbolic intention as a talisman. The coin embodies a philosophy in which material and spiritual realities coexist, intersect, and enhance one another, a philosophy that continues to challenge and intrigue modern observers. The legacy of the coin is far from static. Contemporary researchers continue to study it, attempting to decipher its inscriptions and trace its lineage, while spiritual practitioners honor the traditions associated with it, creating new rituals inspired by ancient practices. The coin, though centuries old, remains relevant, demonstrating that objects imbued with intent and reverence are timeless. It reminds us that history is not merely a record of events, but a living, breathing network of influences, energies, and connections, and that some artifacts, no matter how small, hold the power to resonate across the ages. As one contemplates the coin that sang spells, it becomes clear that it is not simply a relic of the past. It is an ongoing story, a dialogue between the living and the dead, the material and the spiritual. It challenges us to perceive history not just as something written in books, but as something felt, experienced, and engaged with through the objects that survived. The coin is at once humble and profound, small in stature but monumental in significance, a reminder that in the world of human endeavor, even the tiniest creations can carry immense power, legacy, and mystery. The story of the coin does not end with its discovery. Rather, it begins anew each time it passes into the hands of those who seek to understand its mysteries. In the quiet halls of a dimly lit museum, where the echoes of history reverberate against stone walls, the coin rests on a velvet cushion, unassuming in its size but commanding in presence. Visitors who lean closer often feel a subtle vibration beneath their fingertips, as if the coin still remembers the ceremonies and intentions of long-departed priests and merchants. Scholars have speculated that the coin may act as a repository of memory, preserving not only the materials and inscriptions, but also a resonance of human thought, emotion, and ritual intent. It is said that even the faintest whisper near the coin is amplified, carrying with it the weight of history, the residue of prayers, and the silent songs of Carthaginian streets long vanished beneath layers of sand and conquest. The coin's influence extends beyond the tangible. Oral traditions suggest that in the hands of a sensitive individual, the coin can reveal truths invisible to the casual observer. Some claim that holding the coin allows one to glimpse fleeting images of Carthage at its height. Ships lined in the harbor, merchants haggling over silks and spices, priests conducting rituals beneath the glow of torches. The inscriptions, previously thought to be purely symbolic, may serve as keys to unlock visions of a living, breathing city where divine and mortal concerns intertwine seamlessly. Many modern-day mystics who have attempted these practices describe an overwhelming sense of interconnectedness, a feeling that the coin links the present to a past that refuses to be silent. Historians have traced the coin's lineage through time, piecing together a path that spans wars, invasions, and migrations. Each era left its mark, the patina of handling, the scratches of hurried hands, and the faint traces of ceremonial oils. Despite centuries of movement, the coin remained intact, preserving the intentions and energy of countless rituals. Some researchers suggest that its survival is no accident. Rather, the coin may possess a protective quality, an inherent resilience granted through the very spells it carries. Stories recount how it escaped plundering during Rome's conquest of Carthage, passing unnoticed through the hands of soldiers and treasure hunters alike. Its path seems guided, as if an unseen force ensured that the coin would endure, patiently awaiting discovery by those attuned to its resonance. The coin's composition adds to its mystique. Analysis of the metal reveal a combination of alloys unusual for the region and period. suggesting knowledge that surpasses conventional understanding. The inclusion of trace elements, possibly sourced from distant lands, indicates an intentional design, not only for durability, but for resonance, physically and spiritually. The way the metal responds to light, heat, and touch is remarkable. Under certain conditions, faint geometric patterns appear across the surface, almost imperceptible, yet deeply mesmerizing. These patterns are reminiscent of constellations, sacred symbols, and ritual diagrams, reinforcing the idea that the coin was conceived as both a material object and a spiritual conduit. Throughout history, the coin's power has been described in numerous accounts. Priests of Carthage used it in ceremonies to invoke protection for the city and its inhabitants. Traders relied upon it to safeguard their ventures across the Mediterranean, and families kept it within their homes to preserve fortune and well-being. Legends warn, however, that misusing the coin could invoke consequences, both subtle and dramatic. Those who attempted to manipulate its energies for selfish or malicious purposes reportedly experienced unexplainable misfortunes, sudden illness, financial ruin, or the loss of loved ones. The coin's voice, it seems, is responsive. It does not discriminate, but rather mirrors the intent of those who handle it. Modern scientists have sought to understand the coin through empirical means, employing tools of metallurgy, chemistry, and physics. Despite rigorous analysis, many aspects remain inexplicable. The inscriptions, while catalogued and partially translated, contain symbols whose function and meaning are not fully understood. Some suggest these represent coded instructions for ritualistic practice, while others posit that the symbols are designed to resonate psychically with the observer. Experiments reveal that prolonged exposure to the coin can elicit heightened awareness, vivid dreams, and even an uncanny sense of déjà vu, phenomena that defy conventional explanation. The coin's cultural impact extends beyond its immediate environment. Its discovery sparked renewed interest in Carthaginian civilization, leading to fresh archaeological digs and scholarly inquiry. Exhibitions featuring the coin attract audiences from around the world, each visitor drawn not only to its historical significance but to the intangible aura it exudes. Some report hearing faint murmurs, whispers that seem to rise from the metal itself, almost like the coin is recounting its own journey, reminding all who encounter it of the lives it has touched and the centuries it has silently witnessed. Artists, too, have found inspiration in the coin. Painters, writers, and musicians attempt to capture its essence, translating the silent language of its engravings into visual and auditory forms. The coin's influence on contemporary creativity is subtle yet profound, offering a bridge between ancient thought and modern imagination. Its ability to evoke emotion, reflection, and mystery demonstrates the enduring power of artifacts as conduits of human experience, connecting past, present, and future through form, material, and memory. Even today, collectors and spiritual practitioners approach the coin with reverence. Rituals designed to honor its history are conducted with care, including offerings, chants, and meditative practices intended to respect and activate its latent energy. In doing so, the coin continues to fulfill its ancient purpose, a medium through which humans can engage with forces beyond immediate perception. While the exact nature of these forces remains elusive, the coin's enduring allure proves that some objects are not merely artifacts, but living legacies, carrying forward the consciousness of generations long gone. The coin that sang spells is also a testament to human ingenuity, belief, and creativity. It exemplifies how objects can simultaneously serve practical, artistic, and mystical purposes. Through its intricate design, enduring construction, and subtle resonance, it embodies the idea that civilization can leave behind more than monuments and texts. It can leave behind objects that carry intention, energy, and story, woven together in a delicate balance that continues to speak across millennia. Ultimately, the coin challenges our perception of time, history, and power. It invites contemplation not only of Carthage as a society, but of the enduring human desire to connect with forces beyond our immediate understanding. To hold the coin is to hold a fragment of the past, alive with echoes of ritual, commerce, and devotion. It is a reminder that history is not inert but dynamic, capable of resonating through the smallest of objects, whispering secrets to anyone willing to listen. In its silent, steadfast presence, the coin teaches a profound lesson that the most ordinary-looking objects may harbor extraordinary significance, that power may be held in the tiniest form, and that the past, though often buried, can speak to us if we learn to hear carefully. The coin that sang spells remains, as it always has, a bridge between worlds, the mortal and the divine, the living and the dead, the past and the present. And as we contemplate its journey, we are reminded that every touch, every glance, every story associated with it continues to ripple outward, ensuring that the voice of the coin, subtle yet persistent, will never truly fade. Thank you for exploring these mysterious artifacts with us. If you enjoyed uncovering these hidden stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. Until next time, keep discovering the secrets history has left behind.